Chapter 1928. When the two collided, a sizzling sound came from the top of the two-headed flood dragon's head, and thick smoke billowed out as if it had been electrocuted. The poor two-headed flood dragon was forced to swim backward under everyone's fierce attacks. It let out a violent roar, and its yellow eyes, which were as big as light bulbs, revealed the light of hatred. "We must kill it here," little Taisui shouted in a deep voice. This fellow had already developed spiritual intelligence. If it was allowed to escape with the seed of hatred, it would definitely be troublesome in the future. Kill! Dao Wuji laughed heartily with his large saber on his shoulder, and the wind from his saber pointed directly at the two-headed flood dragon in front of him. With a boom, the wind from the saber hit the two-headed flood dragon. At the same time, Fairy Ginkgo and Fairy Peony also made their moves. With Dao Wuji's cultivation in the spiritual venerable realm, he definitely couldn't defeat this adult holy beast. Even with the help of Fairy Ginkgo and Thin Tuchuo, he might not be able to defeat it. Fortunately, this two-headed flood dragon seemed to have gone through a great battle before, and it seemed that its vitality had not recovered yet. When faced with a group of shameless guys in the spiritual venerable realm and celestial venerable realm, even an adult holy beast would not be able to withstand it. It had already thought of retreating a long time ago. Unfortunately, everyone was not stupid. How could they allow it to slip away like this? Instead, when they saw that it had the intention to retreat, their attacks became more and more fierce. On the side, Zhou Danjin and the others were slightly relieved when they saw that Mo Lian and the others had controlled the two-headed flood dragon's attack. At this moment, the two-headed flood dragon let out a roar, which was like a signal to the group of corpse puppets, making those corpse puppets, who had been quietly waiting on the side, ready to move. "Everyone, be careful." Wei Wei organized everyone to fight with the corpse puppets that were pouncing over. For a moment, only the sounds of swords and sabers were heard, and the roars of tigers and leopards were incessant. Woof, woof, woof. 3 brave and fierce little white dogs quickly rushed forward. One of them, unfortunately, pounced on the giant flood dragon's face, and with a fierce claw, immediately tore off the giant flood dragon's face and a handful of black scales. One of the giant flood dragon's eyes was also injured, and it fell to the ground on the spot, its body rolling back and forth. Dao Wuji was very wretched. He took advantage of this opportunity to step forward with his saber and heavily slash at its tail. The giant flood dragon roared miserably. Its tail, which was almost broken, struggled to free itself and sent Dao Wuji flying away. Suddenly, it shrank its body to the size of a bug and tried to find a way to escape. Green light flashed in the eyes of the 3 little white dogs. Suddenly, they all pounced over and bit little Zhao's body. The Bloodfire Phoenix and the fat squirrel that were fighting the zombies hurriedly abandoned the zombies and ran towards the transformed flood dragon. Soon, Arbor and the others saw a round, translucent Saint Beast core fly out of the flood dragon's body. One of the little white dog's eyes suddenly lit up, and it jumped up to bite the crystal core in the air. The other 2 were very intelligent. They pounced at the Bloodfire Phoenix and the little fat squirrel that were eyeing them covetously, blocking their path. The crystal core was about to fall into the little white dog's mouth. An ancient vine came out from the side and swept the crystal core away with a swoosh. The crystal core fell into Arbor's hands. Everyone's mouths twitched. The little girl's face was cold as she said expressionlessly, "Stop fighting. Keep this crystal core for Qiuqiu's nourishment. Don't even think about it." Chapter 1929. When the little white dog saw that the fatty meat in its mouth had actually flown away just like that, it immediately became indignant. It bared its teeth and barked at Arbor, looking like it was about to pounce over and snatch the crystal core in Arbor's hand. Arbor's gaze turned severe, and she coldly said to the 3 puppies, "Do you really want to fight me?" The three little white dogs simultaneously paused in their steps. At the same time, 10 Thunder Spirit talismans swiftly flicked out from Arbor's fingertips and landed on the three puppies' heads with several whooshes. Everyone looked at her speechlessly. Those Thunder Spirit talismans abruptly took effect above the three puppies' heads. Rumbling lightning exploded from the talismans and enveloped the three puppies, immediately striking those three pitiful little white dogs until their fur turned green and black, and they pitifully whimpered a few times. Dao Wuji couldn't bear to watch this any longer and covered his face with his hands. He didn't expect Boss's wife to have this kind of personality. She turned hostile at a moment's notice and didn't even give the other party any leeway to back out. Facing these three adorable little creatures, he actually had the heart to kill them. Everyone felt like they had no eyes to continue watching. Pitiful little white dogs, didn't they know the story of the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind? Woo! Woo! The little white dog circled around everyone's feet, looking somewhat miserable. She really didn't expect that the sacred beast crystal core she coveted for so long would fall into someone else's hands just like that. Woo woo woo. The little stoic expressionlessly looked down at them. What exactly are you? Reveal your true forms. The three little puppies angrily barked at her, and their originally pure white fur turned greenish-black and exploded. Arbor had already put away that sacred beast crystal core long ago and indifferently swept her gaze over the three little puppies. She didn't feel the slightest bit guilty. These three little puppies originally ran over to follow her with impure motives. Wasn't it because she fancied their strength and wanted them to deal with the two-headed flood dragon? Perhaps, the two-headed flood dragon's previous injuries were caused by these three puppies. Although Arbor felt that it was a bit inconceivable, it connected after careful consideration. She would be an idiot if she still thought that these were just three normal hounds. Since the cute little puppies were unwilling to revert to their original forms, then so be it. She didn't have the mood to be long-winded with them, so she waved her hand and said, "Since the two-headed WIRM has been taken care of, you can leave now." These words not only infuriated the three puppies, even the crowd felt that Miss Chiao was too much of a bully. Oh, no, she was bullying dogs. Woo! The little white dog scurried to Arbor's side. Seeing this, Prince Mo's face turned cold and he wanted to kick the three dogs away. Unexpectedly, woo-woo. Woo-woo, the three black-furred puppies tugged at Arbor's skirt and started sobbing. Everyone was speechless. Wasn't this too dramatic? The little white dog that had charged at the two-headed flood dragon earlier was now shameless for the sake of the holy beast crystal core. If the little white dog could speak now, it would definitely rebuke the crowd. We've even lost the holy beast crystal core. Do we still have any face left? Arbor looked down at the three puppies and expressionlessly took out a porcelain bottle from her pocket. She poured out 3 pills and held them in her palm. Don't cry. Haven't you heard of not easily shedding tears? This holy beast crystal core is for little Ball. The next time I get a holy beast crystal core, I'll give it to you. The little fellow handed the pills to them with a cold face. Here. Chapter 1930. Woof. Woof, woof. The 3 dogs immediately roused their spirits and hurriedly ate the pills. They rolled around while hugging Arbor's skirt, feeling a trace of comfort all over their bodies. As soon as the pill entered his body, it immediately emitted a warm steam, and his 5 viscera and 6 bowels felt a trace of warmth. The internal injuries that they had suffered while resisting the two-headed flood dragon, as well as the fur that had been charred on the outside and tender on the inside from the Thunder Spirit Talisman's explosion, were all recovering at a speed invisible to the naked eye. Woof! Woof, woof, woof. The 3 puppies circled around Arbor's feet. The little stoic said expressionlessly, "You can follow me, but you have to abide by my rules." The 3 puppies raised their heads to look at her. 1 bark means you agree, 2 bark means you don't agree. If you don't agree, then you can scram. Arbor continued. The onlookers couldn't help but twitch their lips. The scene before them could truly be immortalized in a painting. 1 stoic face, 3 tormented silly puppies with drooping fur that was almost unrecognizable from their original white fur. First, you have to listen to me in everything. Woof. Everyone. Second, you can't go west if I tell you to go east, and you can't go north if I tell you to go south. Woof. Third, you have to give me all the zombie cores you secretly collected along the way. You have no use for these things. In the future, you have to give anything you pick up to me and let me distribute it. If I don't give it to you, you can't snatch it, much less steal it. Woof, woof. Scram. The stoic face turned merciless. Everyone. Crown Prince Mo instantly had the urge to burst into laughter, but when he looked at his wifey's serious stoic face, he felt that if he laughed out loud, it would definitely make his wifey unhappy. Hence, he held it in from the side, holding it in with great difficulty. Woof. The 3 puppies drooped their heads and crawled to her on all fours. The first puppy shook its entire body, shaking out the crystal cores in the dozen zombie heads. The second and third one also followed up and did the same thing. They shook their small buttocks and heads, shaking all the fur on their bodies as they threw the small pile of crystal cores they had hidden on their bodies in front of Chow Mu. There's more. Miss Chow was expressionless. Everyone. Why did they all feel that the puppies in front of them were so miserable? The 3 miserable puppies shook their fur pitifully, shaking with all their strength and shook out all the treasures they had hidden away. These 3 little fellows might have been the overlords of Dai Zong Mountain for a long time. Xiao Mu stretched out her hand and collected all the things on the ground into her storage talisman. She planned to sort them out when she was free and toss all the weapon refinement materials to Crown Prince Mo. Dao Wuji's face twitched, and he almost couldn't resist asking, why do you have so many rules? To be supplemented. The little stoic said dryly, we'll talk about it when we run into trouble in the future. In the face of all conflicts, the first rule must prevail. Understand? Woof. Miss Chow finally nodded in satisfaction. We can go now. Bang 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 bang. Chapter 1931. Everyone turned their heads in the direction of the sound. The palace wall on the left seemed to have been chiseled by a sharp weapon. Finally, it couldn't withstand the force from the outside and collapsed inwards. Cough, cough, cough. Dust filled the air as a group of people walked in from outside the collapsed palace walls. All of them were covered in dust, looking miserable and exhausted. Aren't these people from Jiaqing Academy and Longjing Academy of Ani Prefecture? And Zhongguang Academy of Yuchuan Prefecture? Why are they all here? Instructor Liao, why did you all come from there? The instructors from Yuchuan Prefecture's Shuangfeng Academy naturally recognized Zhongguang Academy of Yuchuan Prefecture. They hurried forward and greeted Instructor Liao. It's Instructor Su. It's great to see you all. Instructor Liao was about to cry when he saw the familiar Instructor Su. Not only was he covered in dust, but he was also not in good spirits. As for the teams formed by the other academies, they were basically in the same unfortunate situation. Chow, Miss Chow. A surprised voice reached Arbor's ears. Xiao Mu looked up and saw the tall and slender Bai Xia striding toward her with a hearty smile. She cupped her hands and asked, "Do you still recognize me?" Miss Chow. Arbor saw that her clothes were wrinkled, but she looked fine. She nodded and said, "You're Bai Xia. Where are your companions?" "They're behind." Bai Jia, Ji Feng, come here. Bai Xia waved at her younger brother and fiancé. The two of them walked over quickly. They looked more haggard than Bai Xia. Their clothes were also tattered, as if they had crawled out of a rat hole. Sister. Bai Jia glanced at Bai Xia in embarrassment. It wasn't like he hadn't seen Miss Jiao. It was just that he didn't have the face to see her in his current state. Brat, what sister? Hurry up and greet Miss Jiao. Bai Xia glared at Bai Jia. Greetings, Miss Jiao. Bai Jia scratched his head, revealing his two front teeth. Before he could smile, a cold glare from Miss Jiao froze his smile. Fuck. Where did this fiend come from? Just the look in his eyes was enough to send chills down one's spine. Lotus. Xiao Mu turned her small face and pulled up Mo Lian's hand before pointing at Bai Jia and the others. These are Bai Xia, Bai Jia, and Ji Feng from Siyuan Star's Baizi Kingdom that I met when I first came to Shantian Prefecture. Mo Lian nodded slightly, and the three of them hurriedly returned the greeting. Bai Xia smiled and said, Miss Jiao, you found your companion. Arbor shook his head. Not yet. However, Crown Prince Mo had told her last time that she didn't need to worry about Situi and the others. If she didn't encounter them in this Middle Six Prefecture's Academy ranking competition, then it meant that it was very possible that these people had directly gone to the upper three provinces due to some kind of opportunity. The Crown Prince had already sent people to the Divine Prefecture to gather information. There should be news back in a few days. Why are you behind that wall? Don't mention it. Ever since the earth shook 3 days ago and we were jolted down from the ground, we've all been squeezed together. Everyone was squeezed into a long passageway, and it took a Herculean effort to get here. The Sunlight Academy has food and water. Everyone, prepare for battle. Chapter 1932. An ear-piercing scream suddenly interrupted everyone's conversation. Arbor and Mo Lian turned around to look. They saw a girl with her back facing them, her pink dress stained with mud and dirt. She was speaking passionately to the students beside her. Now is not the time for us to be apprehensive. We won't be able to survive. Since we can't come to an agreement with the people from Sunlight Academy, let's just make a move. Everyone couldn't help but be speechless. This scene in front of them felt like a classic. Not long ago, student Yu Axayan from Sunlight Academy fought with Miss Jiao because she didn't give them food and water. Of course, the ending was abnormally tragic. Who would have thought that the tables would turn and the robbers would change? Because Sunlight Academy had a lot of food and water, they became the target of the two great academies of Ani Prefecture. Yu Axayan couldn't help but be enraged. Just now, they were fighting with a few zombies when a half-eaten apple fell out of one of the students' arms. In the end, it caused the people from Ani Prefecture's Jiaqing Academy and Longjing Academy to be envious. Not only did they not help them deal with the zombies, they even took advantage of the time when they were fighting with the zombies to steal the food and water hidden in their arms. Shameless! Yu Axayan angrily scolded. Do you have any shame? Casually stealing other people's things. How can you have the face to do such a thing? This time, it was the group of stupid students from Sunlight Academy who angrily rebuked the people from Ani Prefecture. The girl in the pink dress who was covered in dirt incessantly instigated the people from Ani Prefecture. Everyone, don't be afraid. We have more people on our side than them. Everyone, let's go and steal the food and water. Fuck, you bunch of robbers. Yunchuan Prefecture's Zhongguang Academy's instructor Liao awkwardly looked at the impassioned girl in the pink dress and couldn't help but say, "Fourth Miss Guan. This isn't very good." The girl in the pink dress with red eyebrows and green eyes shouted angrily, "Instructor Liao, if you don't want to fight, then take your students and shrink to the side." Anyone who dares to obstruct us will be viewed as an enemy. Guan Ying was about to go crazy from anger. From the moment they entered the underground passage until now, they couldn't open their inner worlds. They didn't have any food or water. Along the way, he had fought against the rat horde and the corpse puppets. His body's spiritual energy had been greatly consumed, and he couldn't replenish it with pills. His entire body was mentally exhausted, and he felt extremely sleepy. In addition, after 3 days, due to various reasons, he was so hungry and thirsty that he was about to go crazy. Seeing half an apple fall from the Sunlight Academy's student, the hungry and thirsty people's eyes almost turned green. Do it. Guan Ying waved her hand forcefully, commanding the Ani Prefecture's men to step forward. Suddenly, he heard a cold and crisp voice. It's you. Xiao Mu had already felt that this woman was a bit familiar the moment she opened her mouth. However, Guan Ying's current disheveled appearance was a bit different from her previous appearance. That was why Arbor didn't say anything at first. He just looked on coldly as they made a ruckus. At this moment, she finally remembered who this familiar-looking woman was. She was Ani Prefecture's 4th Miss, Guan Ying, who had led people from Jiaozhong base to hunt her down and steal her Xuanji core. Where is Fan Chouha? Arbor looked coldly at Guan Ying. The 6th watch ended. Tomorrow was also extremely busy. Chapter 1933. She remembered that it was Fan Chouha who had brought this woman to Jiaozhong base to cause trouble for her. Speaking of which, perhaps the two of them were quite close. What Fan Chouha? Guan Ying's expression turned extremely ugly in an instant. She also recalled that she had once hunted down this damned girl Arbor in the lower star field. That hunt had simply turned into the biggest joke in the world. She had brought honorary officer Zhao to Jiaozhong base to hunt down this woman, wanting to snatch the Xuanji core from her. However, in the end, none of the people she had brought were spared. They were all killed by this damned girl in front of her. As for her, she had wasted several teleportation talismans and had only managed to escape with great difficulty. Now that she thought about it, she felt that it had been extremely dangerous. Arbor looked coldly at Guan Ying. As expected of a habitual bandit. You want to snatch everything you see. Guan Ying's pretty face reddened as she glared fiercely at Arbor. Suddenly, she pointed at her and turned to the Ani Prefecture people beside her. Everyone, attack together. This woman has the rare treasure Xuanji core on her. As long as we kill her together, we can take out the Xuanji core and share it. We'll be able to recover our spiritual power immediately. What? 4th young Mistress Guan, are you serious? Of course. Guan Ying nodded resolutely. Guan Ying, you're not making up an excuse to coax us into attacking, are you? Believe it or not, it's up to you. In any case, every word I say is absolutely true. Guan Ying said angrily. Whoosh! A cluster of flames instantly flew in front of Guan Ying. In the nick of time, Guan Ying rolled on the ground and dodged. She turned her head to look at the deep pit that had been burned into the ground, her face faintly pale. When she looked up, she noticed a cold-faced man in black standing beside the damned girl. That man was extremely good-looking. At this moment, his phoenix eyes were slightly raised as he coldly looked at her, as if he was looking at a corpse. It made her feel cold all over for no reason, and she couldn't be bothered to appreciate the beauty in front of her. The Ani Prefecture people were incited by Guan Ying, and their eyes revealed the light of excitement and desire. The Xuanji core. It was an ancient legend passed down from the upper 3 continents. It was said that this Xuanji core contained Senior Xuanji's entire life's worth of cultivation. Back then, it had attracted the attention of many parties. But it turned out The Schwanji core was actually taken away by a little girl. Everyone looked at Arbor with greed in their eyes. Arbor wasn't afraid. He coldly glanced at them. One blue attack talisman after another slowly floated up around her body, slowly swaying around her. Guan Ying, today, you will die here with these idiots. Kill them. As soon as Arbor's voice fell, everyone around him moved in unison. They all pounced on the people from Ani Prefecture, raising their swords to slaughter them. How could these Ani Prefecture Academy students, who had stayed in the tunnel for a long time and had been poisoned half to death by the corpse puppets, be a match for Endless Blade and the others? They were like little chicks, and half of them were killed in no time. The remaining people were scared out of their wits and hurriedly fled in all directions. They didn't care about anything else and kept running toward the tunnel they came from. Guan Ying. One of the Ani Prefecture Juching Academy students roared with red eyes. Only then did everyone realize that this woman, Guan Ying, had already slipped to the side of the tunnel where the battle had started. Chapter 1934. At this moment, she already had one foot in the tunnel and was about to slip away. All of a sudden, a furry tail smashed into her back. With a flick of the tail, Guan Ying was pulled back from the entrance of the tunnel and thrown to the ground. Ah! Guan Ying hurriedly rolled a few times on the ground and escaped from the little fat squirrel's furry tail. She looked over with a rare look of panic. The reason she had instigated everyone to attack together was to buy herself some time to escape. She wasn't stupid. When she was in the lower star field, she had led Consecrated Zhao and the others, but they still couldn't take down the brat in front of her. Not to mention the people standing beside the brat now. She glanced at them and felt that they weren't simple at all. She would be stupid to pick such a time to fight with her. If she wanted to kill her, she would have to secretly find time to gather everyone to find her. Like now, she only had the students from Ani Prefecture by her side. How could she deal with this powerful brat? Unfortunately, although she had a good plan, Arbor wasn't a fool. He had already locked onto Guan Ying with his spiritual sense. When he saw that she was about to slip away, he hurriedly ordered the little fat squirrel to deal with her. Guan Ying had suffered greatly at Chirp's hands in the lower star field, so she didn't dare to face it head-on. A teleportation talisman appeared in her hand, and she was about to leave. She suddenly realized that the fat squirrel, which was the size of a small hill, was grinning at her strangely. She had a bad feeling on the spot, but before she could do anything, she felt a large, thick palm slap her back. At that moment, he uncontrollably rushed forward. Chirp! The fat squirrel danced with joy. Before Guan Ying could react, it squatted down and sat on the Guan family's fourth young Mississippi. Guan Ying almost choked on her breath. After a few seconds, she realized that her bones seemed to have been crushed by something heavy. She was in so much pain that she trembled all over and roared hoarsely. Her body. Her body was in so much pain that it didn't feel like it belonged to her anymore. Her bones, were they all broken? It was just a squirrel that was as fat as a small hill that sat on him. Then, he was fucking fractured all over his body. Guan Ying wanted to reach out and punch the ground, but she felt that the bones in her arms were so soft that she couldn't muster up any strength. Seeing this, the other students from Ani Prefecture's Juching Academy turned pale with fright, their lips trembling. Someone dropped the weapon in his hand with a clang before falling to his knees in front of little Taisui and begging for mercy. Spare me, spare me. This lowly dog's eyes are blind, unable to recognize the heroes. Please spare my life. Crack. Little Taisui didn't even bat an eyelid. He directly reached out and snapped the man's neck, casually tossing the corpse to the side. With a pair of silver eyes, he coldly said, "Shut up." Mo Lien and the others had taken care of everyone in Jiaqing Academy, including the few instructors with ulterior motives. Everyone turned to look and saw the little stoic squatting in front of the little fat squirrel. Specifically, she was squatting in front of Guan Ying, who was being squatted on by the little fat squirrel. Is the game of hunting me fun? Arbor poked Guan Ying's forehead with a thin sneer. How about we make a deal? Tell me honestly, are you familiar with Fan Choha? Chapter 1935. If I'm satisfied with your answer, I'll see if I should let you off. Guan Ying sneered. She wanted to spit on Arbor, but when the saliva reached her mouth, it was slapped by the little fat squirrel, causing the corner of her mouth to twitch. Bitch, don't try to get information out of me. Guan Ying said fiercely, if my father knew how you treated me, he definitely wouldn't let you off. A few streams of water jumped between Arbor's fingers, gradually turning into extremely sharp and long icicles. Is that so? Dozens of sharp icicles pierced into Guan Ying's shoulders and elbows. Each icicle pierced deeply, causing Guan Ying's entire body to convulse. Ah! Guan Ying. Arbor's cold voice fell into her ears, causing Guan Ying to feel as if a cold current had brushed past her from the depths of her heart to her limbs. It was so cold that it penetrated her heart. What's your relationship with Fan Choha? No relationship. We have no relationship at all. Guan Ying finally couldn't take it anymore and confessed. She lay on the ground as tears streamed down her face. She kept shouting, I've said it. I've already said it. Hurry up and make it leave. Her body was pressed under a small furry mound. Just the pain alone was indescribable. Guan Ying felt that even if the fat squirrel moved its butt away, her entire body would probably be crippled. I only wanted to find out the whereabouts of the Xuanji Corps and find the kid from the Fan family to lead the way. Arbor frowned slightly and slowly pulled out the icicles pierced into her shoulders and elbows one by one. Ah! Guan Ying continued to let out a few tragic cries. The pain of pulling out the icicles was even more unbearable than when they were pierced in. Guan Ying's entire body trembled as she looked at Arbor with unfocused eyes. Why you kill me? Kill me. You think you're very pitiful right now, don't you? Arbor looked at her expressionlessly. There was not the slightest ripple in his heart. Arbor raised his head slightly and motioned for the fat squirrel to leave. Chirp. The little fat squirrel moved its butt and moved its huge body away from Guan Ying, who was almost squashed by it. Guan Ying's eyes turned cold. Just as she was about to struggle and roll to the side, a vine with barbs suddenly appeared out of nowhere. With a whoosh, she was rolled up and thrown out, heavily smashing into the wall of the underground palace. Ah! 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 Guan Ying rolled on the ground, her head bleeding profusely. The zombies that were originally fighting with Qi Xianxian and the others at the side were very perceptive and retreated a little. I'm so scared. This girl. Everyone also turned their heads to look at Miss Jiao, who was emitting a cold aura from head to toe, and tactfully glanced to the side. At Jiaozheng base, if I wasn't skilled enough and ended up in your hands, I'm afraid my fate would be tens of thousands of times worse than now. Arbor looked coldly at Guan Ying on the ground, his eyes cold. He hated these self-righteous people from the middle 6 prefectures and the upper 3 prefectures the most. They always acted high and mighty, thinking that they were naturally superior to others. As long as it was something they wanted, regardless of whether others gave it to them or not, they could just snatch it. In any case, those ants from the lower star regions couldn't do anything to them. Chapter 1936. Arbor stared coldly at Guan Ying, who was lying on the ground. A vine flew up and landed heavily on her body. You can die now. Ah! Viciousness flashed through Guan Ying's eyes. Using all her strength, she spat out a round bead from her mouth. Be careful. Mo Lien flew forward and hugged his little wife. In the blink of an eye, the divine power bead exploded in front of everyone with a boom. The entire main hall of the underground palace was shaking in this tremor. The palace walls and round pillars all around cracked and collapsed one after another with creaking sounds. This scene happened very quickly. Before anyone could react, everyone felt their vision suddenly turn black. The collapsed bricks, stones, and dust all came crashing down on their heads. With a crackling sound, it covered everyone's figure. It wasn't until a long time later that someone coughed from the pile of dirt. Jojo. Xian. Fatty, is everyone okay? Cough cough cough. We're fine. Duanmu Qing coughed several times as if he had choked on a mouthful of dust. His throat was a little dry. Don't panic, everyone. Slowly dig a path and gather together, Instructor Wei Wei said in a low voice. Pay attention to the corpse puppets around you. Thump 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 thump. Arbor kicked away a large rock in front of her. She held the night illumination pearl and shone it forward. She immediately saw the dusty little fatty and Duanmu Qing. Duanmu Qing hurriedly ran forward and anxiously asked, Jojo, are you okay? He looked her up and down. Arbor shook her head. Hearing the commotion coming from the left, everyone made a gesture of waving their hands. Fortunately, it was not the corpse puppet lord that moved the huge rock away. It was Little Tai Sui, Endless Blade, and the others. Everyone should be somewhere not far away. Dig away a bit of the soil and rocks above. Let everyone gather together first, then think of a way to dig out, Duanmu Qing said. Prince Mo nodded slightly. This place should not be far from the exit. If teleportation array glyphs were used, there would be many uncertainties. If we end up being teleported back to the tunnel we came from, we might as well dig a new one. Little Fatty nodded. All right. Let's do it then. 3 hours later, Sunlight Academy, Frostwind Academy, Honghu Academy, and the others were all dug out by Arbor. Chao Yun's face was covered in dust. He coughed a few times and cupped his hands towards Zhou Danjin and the others. Many thanks. Cough cough cough. What should we do now? I think I've found the way out. Now, I need everyone to work together and dig a tunnel. Maude crossed his arms and glanced at the people from the Sunlight Academy. Is that okay? Of course. Cough, 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 no problem. Chao Yan nodded repeatedly. The other instructors nodded in agreement. At this time, getting out was naturally the most important thing. Everyone followed the path that Maude had found and continued to dig the tunnel. The three of them dug together, and when they were tired, they would switch places with the other three. Fortunately, Miss Chiao provided them with an endless supply of food and water. Everyone was very grateful. The beasts were huge and were naturally not suited for such a narrow tunnel. However, one of the students from the Sunlight Academy had an earth-drilling mouse, which unexpectedly helped them a lot. After digging like this for 4 or 5 days, they finally reached the surface. They could faintly see a ray of sunlight shining in from the outside. That's it for today. Tomorrow will be normal. It's time to sleep. Chapter 1937. Everyone was very happy, and they continued to dig forward at a faster speed. The dawn was right in front of them, and everyone was full of fighting spirit. Under the urging of its master, the burrowing mouse did its best to push the soil and rocks in front of it to the sides of the tunnel. Everyone moved very quickly. They didn't care about the various spiritual tools that they had treasured so much, and they used them as tools for digging. But when they heard a dong-dong sound, the last piece of soil and rock in front of them was pushed away. Zhou Danjin bent his waist and crawled out of the hole. He looked up at the light flowing through the leaves and laughed loudly. I'm out, I'm out. He jumped up with a whoosh and landed on a branch. Then Wei Wei, Little Fatty, Qi Xianxian, and the others also jumped out of the hole. Everyone came out of the hole one after another. They exhaled a long breath and looked at each other silently. Oh my God, after so many days in history, I finally came out of that dark hole. Zhou Danjin tried to open his inner world, and he couldn't help but frown. I think we'd better leave this Dai Zong mountain as soon as possible. Everyone naturally nodded in agreement, but they cursed the bastard who came up with such a preliminary test in their hearts. If it weren't for Poland Prefecture's Heavenly Bestow Academy, who strongly advocated using such a novel method for the preliminary test, they wouldn't have had so much trouble. Among them, there were a few students who had lost their lives in this place. Heavenly Bestow Academy was simply shameless. Now that they thought about it, they just wanted to gather everyone's strength and get rid of the corpse puppets on the mountain behind the academy as soon as possible. A hoarse roar came from the side, and a lock of drooping rotten flesh on a face suddenly enlarged in front of Little Fatty's eyes. Mother! Little Fatty casually raised the double-headed hammer in his hand, which was still stained with mud, and hit the corpse puppet's head with a dong-dong sound. Everyone was shocked and hurriedly attacked. Countless amounts of spiritual energy desperately smashed into the unlucky corpse puppet, blasting it into smithereens in a matter of minutes. Everyone looked around vigilantly, but they didn't find another corpse puppet. It seemed that this was just a fish that escaped the net. Zhou Danjin heaved a sigh of relief. This place is lush with foliage and isn't suitable for flying spirit beasts. We'll summon them after we get out of this area. Let's get on our way. He didn't know if there was any danger in this place. It won't be too late for us to rest after we get out of here, another mentor hurriedly said. All right. Everyone nodded in unison and hurried to catch up with the mentors. They hurried out of Dai Zong Mountain. Whoosh whoosh. However, before they could take a few steps, two black figures suddenly landed in front of them. Zhou Danjin and the others were startled. They quickly prepared for battle. Taking a closer look, they were the two old supervisors that they had seen before. Only then did Zhou Danjin and the others relax slightly. Wei Wei stepped forward and cupped his hands. Are the two of you waiting for us here? One of the black-robed old men nodded and smiled with relief. You're the only ones left. The two of us have been waiting for you here for a long time. Now, please follow us to the nearby Heavenly Academy to rest and adjust. Wei Wei heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly thanked them. Thank you very much. Please. You've worked hard this time. The two old men nodded and turned to lead everyone away. Chapter 1938. The two elders were naturally familiar with the surroundings of Dai Zong Mountain. Soon, they led the crowd down a small path behind the mountain, which led directly to the back door of the Heavenly Academy. When the crowd followed the two supervising elders into the Heavenly Academy, they all breathed a sigh of relief. As far as the eye could see, the Heavenly Academy was shaded by trees, and the environment was excellent. Their nostrils were filled with the faint smell of fragrant grass, accompanied by a faint medicinal fragrance from the medicine tower. Now, you can see if you can use your mystic senses to open your inner worlds, the two elders said with a smile. Zhou Danjin and the others hurriedly tried, then nodded happily and said in unison, yes. That's good. The elder nodded and then told the crowd, in fact, in some special areas of Dai Zong Mountain, there grows a kind of tree that can block everyone's mystic senses and spiritual senses. We call it the shield tree. Previously, the double-headed dragon, the guardian beast of Dai Zong Mountain, fought with a strange creature, which caused the earth to shake and the mountain to shake, and the whole ground to collapse. Most people were evacuated from the mountain, but a small number of people, including you, were swept into the underground cave at the bottom of the mountain. The dean sent several elders to guard the entrances and exits, intending to bring you out as soon as they saw you. A few days later, the rest of the people also came out in batches. Only your few teams were able to wait until today for the two of us to see. Speaking of which, in 3 days, the semi-finals of the Academy ranking competition will begin. You came out just in time. Everyone suddenly realized why their spiritual sense had been unable to be used after they had entered the underground. Perhaps, in the depths of the ground, there happened to be something like the roots of the shield tree, which happened to be within its range. So, we've all passed the preliminaries? A student from the Sunlight Academy asked excitedly. The elder nodded to them with certainty. Of course. You've already destroyed the entire underground base of undead puppets. You're the only one with such a great contribution. There is no doubt that you all passed the preliminaries. Only then did everyone rejoice. Originally, when they came out, they were still secretly cursing in their hearts. At that time, they were too preoccupied with fighting and did not have time to collect the remains of the corpse puppets. There was no evidence to prove that they had killed so many corpse puppets. Hearing this, Arbor poured out a large pile of bones from the storage talisman with a crash. He said expressionlessly, "Why didn't you say so earlier? She even had to clean up so much useless trash. It was simply polluting her storage talisman." Everyone was speechless. Pfft, it was unknown who was the first to burst out laughing. Everyone else couldn't resist laughing out loud at once. Now that they came back to their senses and looked at this little stoic, they actually felt that she had lost some of her viciousness. Instead, she was infinitely cute and adorable. It was simply too comical. It turned out that this little stoic hadn't forgotten to clean up the bones of these zombies for them while she was fighting. Although she didn't say anything, she had considered everything for them. He was worried that they would not be able to hand over the bones after spending so much effort to kill the zombie, and their results would be erased. All the students cupped their hands at her and said with a chuckle, "Thank you very much." However, the little stoic abruptly turned her small face away and muttered expressionlessly, "It's not like I picked them up for you. You're flattering yourself." Chapter 1939. Fine. The little girl's tsundere disease was acting up again. Everyone smiled helplessly and followed the two supervisors to the designated dormitory areas for their respective students. Each academy was allocated a small courtyard. Although it wasn't particularly big, it was slightly cramped. Staying there for 2 or 3 days was no problem at all. Arbor and Qi Xianxian shared a room. The other rooms were randomly allocated by the men. Seeing Prince Mo's aggrieved expression before leaving, Miss Chiao couldn't help but secretly laugh in her heart. Qi Xianxian tidied herself up and came out from the inner room. She dragged a stool and sat in front of Arbor. With a serious expression, she said, "Jojo, why don't I stay outside and let your lotus stay here?" Arbor was flipping through the spoils of war he brought back from Mount Daizong. Hearing this, he didn't even raise his head and said, "No need." They should have already arranged the accommodations. They would only stay for 1 or 2 days. The semi-finals wouldn't be held in Heavenly Bestow Academy. Thus, after resting for 1 or 2 nights, they would be leaving for the semi-finals soon. I knew Jojo was the best. He definitely wouldn't choose a lover over a friend. Qi Xianxian was immediately revived and said with a smile. Seeing that Arbor ignored her and focused on picking out the items and putting them into other storage talismans, Qi Xianxian couldn't help but ask. Qi Xian couldn't help but ask curiously, what are these materials and the crystal cores of these corpse puppets used for? For my lotus, Arbor said calmly. Qi Xian instantly felt as if she had been shot in the chest. She raised her hand to cover her chest and pretended to shout, hey, can't you stop for a moment? Would it kill him to not show off his love for a day? Arbor raised his little face and winked at her. He's a divine weapon master. Holy shit, it can't be. To be honest, Qi Xian, had never seen a legendary divine weapon master in her life. Qi Xian hurriedly turned her small face and dragged a stool to Arbor's side. Look, if you're free, why don't you ask your lotus to modify this low-level spiritual sword of mine? Arbor glanced at her and nodded reluctantly. Let's rest for a couple of days. He's been pretty tired lately. Qi Xian chuckled and nodded, of course. Jojo, what's the use of the crystal cores in these corpse puppets? It's useful for people with special abilities. People with special abilities can absorb these cores to improve their abilities. Arbor's hand paused as he picked up the cores. Come to think of it, she should be able to use this to improve her psychokinesis, right? Thinking of this, he kept a few small pieces of crystal nuclei, intending to absorb them himself. Most of them were stored in a storage talisman together with the refining materials. He jumped up and said, I'm going to find my lotus. Qi Xian. So what if you have a husband? Arbor ran to the door and did not forget to turn around and stab Qi Xian in the back. Xian, if you take a fancy to any good man, remember to tell me. The little fellow said to her in an experienced tone, I'll keep an eye out for you. Qi Xian felt very angry. She silently watched as the little fellow flew away like a little butterfly, flying far away. Stinky girl. Qi Xian puffed up her cheeks and glanced at the little fellow's departing figure in annoyance. She thought to herself, stinky girl, if only you were this happy every day. Previously, when she found those corpses in the underground prison, her frantic look was really heart-wrenching. Chapter 1940. Arbor walked out of his room and happened to come face to face with Prince Mo. Here you go. Arbor stuffed the storage talisman into Mo Lian's hands and expressionlessly said, Lotus for me. Mo Lian looked down at the storage talisman in her hand. When she saw that it was filled to the brim with corpse puppet cores and all kinds of refining materials, she couldn't help but be moved and pull the little guy into her arms. His little thing was always thinking about him. The corpse puppet cores she collected weren't for her own use at all. They were all collected for him. Standing off to the side, Limitless Blade, who was comparable to 1,000 candles, curled his lips and said, I used to have a dozen wives, and they also revolved around me every day. They gave me this and that to please me. Little Tai Sui, who was sitting at a small stone table and sipping tea, sneered, then what about now? Humph. Dao Wuji snorted, don't worry. With my appearance, it's not difficult for me to find 8 or 10 more wives for her. Hee hee. Little Tai Sui snorted disdainfully. For someone like you, no matter how many wives you have, it's useless. When your wives see you like this, don't say anything. Sooner or later, none of them will be left. What did you say? Limitless Blade blew his beard and glared. What do you mean by, I like this? How could I not have a single wife left? As the two bickered, Miss Chiao turned to glare at Limitless Blade. Shut up. You talkative king. Long-winded. Little Tai Sui laughed and glanced at Limitless Blade. Did you hear that? Talkative king, long-winded. Sigh, you two should stop bickering. Come, Limitless Blade, have a cup of tea and cool down. Ma Yingchen sat at the stone table and pushed a cup of tea toward Limitless Blade. Seriously, little Tai Sui is right. What's the point of having so many wives? You might as well find a wife and get along well with her. Isn't that better? What do people like you who have never had a wife know? Limitless Blade huffed and picked up the teacup and drained it in one gulp. A wife is also a part of a man's strength. Do you understand? Just like him. Dao Wuji secretly pointed in Prince Mo's direction. My boss is a man of striking appearance. He should be an elegant and romantic person. It's not a problem for him to have two beauties in his arms. Sigh, but now. How are things now? A faint voice entered Endless Blade's ears. Dao Wuji did not know that he was courting death. With his back to the young couple, he kept talking, now. He was simply a pitiful henpecked husband. This is too embarrassing for us men. Ah, ah, ah. Oh. Ah. Before he could finish his sentence, he was kicked from behind and fell onto the stone table in front of Ma Shichin. Miss Chiao did not say another word and gave Dao Wuji a violent beating. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal passed him a feather duster. Use this, use this. Jojo, don't hurt your hand. Prince Mo shook his head helplessly. You asked for it. Little Tai Sui coughed lightly and picked up the teapot and teacup. He dodged to the side and poured himself a cup of tea. After taking a sip, he said, as the saying goes, you can survive a heavenly disaster, but you can't survive a self-inflicted disaster. Ah, ah, oh. Don't hit me anymore. Hey, if you hit me again, I will retaliate. Return it. Prince Mo threatened coldly from the side. Dao Wuji immediately fell silent. He hugged his head and scurried around, crying pitifully. Chapter 1941. Ah. Hey, hey, sister-in-law, sister-in-law. Stop it. I was wrong. Dao Wuji immediately surrendered. What a joke. If he dared to fight back, he would definitely become the target of Prince Mo and the venerable Chang Xian. He would be stupid to fight back. Alright, it's getting late. Don't make a fuss. Go back to your rooms and rest. Instructor Wei Wei's roar came from the room across from them. Arbor resentfully retracted his little hand, snorted, and waved his little paw at Prince Mo, then I'll go back first. Mo Lien nodded. Only after his phoenix eyes watched his wifey return to her room did he retract his gaze. He turned to look at the bruised and swollen Wuji and asked with a smile, don't worry, after we return to the Divine Province, you can have as many wives as you want. For some reason, Dao Wuji looked at Prince Mo's unfathomable expression and shuddered for no reason. Why did he feel like this kid was secretly plotting against him? Dao Wuji extended a paw. I think so. As a matter of fact, having a good wife was enough. He. Prince Mo patted him on the shoulder, glanced at him indifferently, and then turned to go back to his room. Seeing this, Yuan Shichin sympathetically gave Dao Wuji a good luck look and followed Prince Mo back to his room to rest. Dao Wuji hurriedly turned to look at little Tai Sui. Little Tai Sui, don't you think that? Boss's gaze is a bit strange. He said that when we return to China, he would arrange a wife for me. What does that mean? Little Tai Sui looked at Dao Wuji as if he was an idiot. Won't you know when you go to China? Oh. Dao Wuji thought about it. Little Tai Sui's words did make some sense. It was useless for him to fret here. Not only would it not make any difference, it would seem like he was worrying about nothing. Then. Little Tai Sui. Little. Dao Wuji watched as the little rascal left him behind and returned to his room without looking back. He couldn't help but look at the empty courtyard. With his head drooping, he pitifully walked away. After a night of rest, everyone felt much more refreshed by the next day. After working hard for so many days, Instructor Wei Wei gave everyone a day off so that they could do whatever they wanted. If they wanted to continue resting in the courtyard, they could stay in their rooms for the rest of the day. If they wanted to go out for a walk, they could go together. How could Qi Xianxian be idle? Once she heard that it was free time, she immediately pulled Arbor and planned to take a stroll around the Heavenly Bestowing Academy. We've destroyed Dai Zong Mountain and the entire underground base of the corpse puppets. Do you think we'll be rewarded? Xiao Mu was currently pondering something, so she didn't say anything when she heard this. She only regained her senses when Qi Xianxian tugged at her. She looked up at Qi Xianxian. TSK, I've been talking to you for so long, but you've been daydreaming. Qi Xianxian glanced at her speechlessly. What are you thinking about? Arbor was thinking about Fan Chouhe. What did Fan Chouhe do to be able to build such a large corpse breeding ground under Dai Zong Mountain? Could it be that he was also a member of the Heavenly Fate Organization? If Fan Chouhe was a member of the Heavenly Fate Organization, then everything that happened before seemed to make sense. Tian Yun, this evil cult, had always used humans as their research subjects. Chapter 1942. What Tian Yun had been doing was simply to study the human body and create extraordinary experts. Instead of calling the nocturnal caw bird a poison, it would be better to call it a drug that radically changed the human body. Survival of the fittest, natural selection. In the end, after generations of spreading the powder, it would probably only cultivate the strongest person. Those who could adapt would speed up the change. Those who could not adapt would probably only become a foundation like a corpse puppet. From the looks of it, Fan Chouhe's experiment on a small scale was similar to what Tian Yun had done. They were both studying the human body. Fan Chouhe was probably only studying for himself. He wanted to obtain information from others on how to become stronger, including how to grow his inner world, how to strengthen his spiritual sense, and so on. Therefore, he had been nurturing his puppet dolls in that underground prison all this time. There was no doubt that Fan Chouhe was Tianyun's man. However, Arbor still did not know who was in charge of Fan Chouhe. The matter of going to Clear Sky Valley seemed to be imminent. However, the competition concerned Little Tree's life, so she could not relax. Jojo. When Qi Xianxian saw that Xiao Mu was keeping her head down and not saying anything, she didn't want to disturb Xiao Mu's thoughts. However, there was a group of people blocking their path, so Qi Xianxian had no choice but to call out to her and tug at Xiao Mu's sleeve. Arbor turned to look at Qi Xianxian. Are we going back? Qi Xianxian shook her head. No. Jojo, look. Qi Xianxian gently tugged at the corner of her sleeve and pointed at the group of people blocking the spacious road ahead. The road on the campus of Heavenly Bestow Academy was quite spacious. There was no problem for 5 or 6 people to walk side by side. However, at this moment, there were a dozen people in front of them, blocking the road in a row. What do you want? Arbor asked with a frown. A girl in green took the lead and stepped forward. She first sized her up, then asked, you're the great talisman master who can draw storage talismans, right? Arbor frowned slightly. She sized up the girl and asked with a stoic face, what do you want? Sir. Can you draw a storage talisman for me? The woman suddenly knelt in front of her and clasped her hands in front of her chest. She looked at her with a pair of pitiful eyes and shouted anxiously, I am willing to use spirit tools or medicinal herbs to exchange for it. Please give me a storage talisman. Arbor was speechless. The little girl thought that someone had come to look for trouble again. She was puzzled in her heart. How could she have enemies in the Heaven Bestowing Academy? Please give me a storage talisman. The dozen or so people knelt down in unison and cupped their hands in a pleading manner. Qi Xuanxuan's mouth twitched. She thought they were here to cause trouble, but they were just a bunch of idiots. Sir. Please accept our request, Your Excellency. Arbor's face was expressionless. He looked up at the sky and pondered. Storage talismans take the good fortune of the heavens and are very difficult to draw. Understood, understood, understood. Everyone nodded and said, we're willing to wait in line. 1 month, 3 months, half a year, even a year would be good. Please don't reject us. What do you want? Just name your price. Arbor nodded slightly. Then please wait for a moment. I'll draw up a list of items for exchange for you. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, Your Excellency. See you tomorrow. Chapter 1943. Master, feel free to tell us what you need or what materials you need. We lowly ones will definitely, take care of everything, no matter how big or small. We will definitely help Master properly. Emichim, the little stoic, gave a deep Emichim. She nodded slightly with one hand behind her back. Everyone scrambled to take out the tables, chairs, stools, paper, and pens they had prepared beforehand from their inner worlds and handed them to Arbor so that she could draw up a list of materials to exchange for a storage talisman. Everyone held the list like it was a treasure and had a rough idea after looking through it. They planned to work together to gather a set of materials to exchange for a storage talisman first. The list will be changed once a month. Next month, it might not be the same materials. The little stoic said aloofly, find her to sign up and gather the materials within a month after signing up. Otherwise, we won't wait. Arbor pointed at student Qi Xianxian, whose mouth was agape, and left with a flick of her sleeves. Everyone instantly surrounded Qi Xianxian so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Student Qi Xianxian looked dumbfoundedly at the little stoic who abandoned her and ran off first. Her small face was conflicted as she silently cursed, "You brat, are you sure you're not tired of running?" As expected, Master has the demeanor of a master. A female student from Heavenly Bestow Academy praised with admiration, "We have to gather the materials as soon as possible. At least one set of materials. I heard that the space inside Master's storage talisman is rather large. Too awesome." Everyone surrounded student Qi Xianxian, who wanted to cry but had no tears, and chattered for a long time. At this time, Arbor had already slipped back to the small courtyard. At Prince Mo's door, she encountered Mo Lian and He Shurchen, who happened to be coming out. Miss Chow cheered and bounced forward. "Let's go. Didn't you go out with Qi Xianxian?" He Shurchen curiously looked behind her. "Where did you throw Qi Xianxian?" "She's very busy. As Master's assistant, she has to take care of some chores." "Master?" The two men glanced at her. "Which master?" The little stoic patted her chest. "Master Chiao." Pft, Prince Mo and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal couldn't help but laugh. The two of them, who were familiar with the young lady's temperament, immediately knew that Qi Xianxian, this unlucky child, was most likely tricked by Miss Chiao. Amused, Prince Mo reached out and hooked her pinky finger. "Let's go." The three of them left the courtyard and walked along a small path towards the Heavenly Academy's garden. Arbor couldn't help but shed a tear of sympathy for himself as he looked at the others' academy and thought of his own dilapidated top-notch academy. Although the name of this top-tier academy sounded resounding, in terms of facilities, architecture, and reputation, it couldn't even compare to a small third-rate academy in the 6 prefectures continent. At the very least, a third-rate academy would have a signboard, a gate, or something like that. The dormitories of the students were not like the ones in the top-tier academies, where there was only a small lump of dirt and nothing else. Arbor shook his head, only to see 3 or 4 students hurriedly running towards him, their faces full of excitement as they shouted, "Let's go, let's go, let's go to the ring and have a look. I heard that 2 senior sisters from the 3rd years are having a public duel there today." "Which 2 from the 3rd years?" When an excited girl ran past Arbor, she almost bumped into her shoulder. Prince Mo reacted swiftly and scooped his wifey into his arms to avoid her. Chapter 1944. The girl was taken aback. She turned to say, "Sorry," before her gaze landed on the 3 of them. These 3 people's appearances were simply too outstanding. Prince Mo, who was dressed in black, and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal, who was dressed in a demonic red robe, were simply heaven-defying, peerless and unparalleled. In front of the 2 of them stood a little girl who looked like a little jade sculpture carved from ice. She was looking at them. The girl hurriedly smiled in embarrassment. "Sorry, I almost bumped into you." Arbor shook her head, indicating that it was fine. The girl smiled. Just as she was about to turn and leave, she suddenly turned to them and said, "You are, students from the other academies, right? If you don't have anything to do, you can come with us to the arena area to watch. The 2 senior sisters are having a martial arts competition there today. It should be quite exciting." Arbor nodded. The girls glanced at them again, then hurriedly left. Arbor pursed her lips. "I don't like to watch a show." 15 minutes later, the 3 of them stood in front of the arena area, occupying an advantageous position. Xiao Mu's eyebrows curved slightly as she watched the 2 women's swords crisscrossing each other on the stage. She exclaimed softly, "You're all classmates. What kind of deep-seated hatred do you have for your moves to be so sharp?" Miss Xiao, who didn't like to watch a show, quietly took out an orange from her pocket. She peeled it and commented, "Isn't her move too fierce?" Ma Yingchen and Prince Mo were somewhat helpless. "It's a life and death battle to begin with. It's either you die or I die." "What?" Miss Xiao's eyes widened slightly. "You can have a life and death battle in the academy. Forgive their academy for only having 8 students." Everyone was quite friendly. She had never heard of a life and death battle between students. Look, there's a life and death contract over there." Ma Yingchen pointed her chin at a spot not far away. Arbor looked over and realized that there was indeed a large piece of red paper pasted on the stool at the edge of the arena. The 3 words, "Life and Death Contract," were written on it. There was also the blood contract imprint of the 2 people. Miss Xiao's hand, which was holding the orange, paused. She looked at the 2 young women on the stage and shook her head. "What a pity." Ma Shichin reached out and took half of the orange from her hand. As he ate, he said, "What's there to pity? In the end, it's all about fate. If they want to sign the life and death agreement, then they have to follow the rules of the heavenly Tao. Even if they don't die, one of them has to die." Miss Xiao blinked. "So it's only when one of them dies that the victor will be decided." "Smart." Prince Mo nodded and took the other half of the orange, praising it. Miss Xiao looked down and saw that it was empty. The peeled oranges in his hands all fell into the mouths of others. "My master said that it's best to have something to eat while watching the competition. That way, one's mood will be better," Miss Xiao suddenly said as she took out a banana from her inner world. "You mean, Her Excellency Dark Phoenix?" Prince Mo was slightly startled as he asked. "Yes. You remember now?" Mo Lien couldn't help but ask softly. "Remember what?" "Ah, nothing." Arbor shook his head with a distressed expression. "It's just that I occasionally remember that Master said this before." "You'll remember slowly." Prince Mo raised his hand and patted her head. At this moment, the victor had already been decided on the arena. It should be said that one of the women had fallen to the ground and died. Chapter 1945. In an instant, the life and death contract hanging in front of the arena automatically burned to ashes. Arbor looked at the girl who died in the arena and shook her head. A familiar voice suddenly sounded in her ear. Hey, this little sister, can you tell me what kind of deep hatred these two senior sisters have for them to have a life and death battle in the arena? Hey, little fatty bro, you'll find it funny even if I tell you. These two senior sisters liked the same senior brother at the same time, and that senior brother was wavering between the two of them. In the end, these two senior sisters made this agreement in order to fight over that man. Wow, your academy even encourages male and female students to form partners? Little fatty bro, don't talk nonsense, of course the academy doesn't encourage it. Come here, I'll tell you this, you can't pass it on to others. Arbor stretched her little neck to take a look, and saw little Fatty surrounded by 3 or 4 gorgeously dressed little sisters, going to the side to inquire for information. She suddenly understood why that guy Ko-Hongjian of the Ko family was so jealous of little Fatty. Needless to say, although the little Fatty was chubby, his round and chubby face was quite cute, and he was very popular with girls. Little Fatty's popularity had always been good among women. Arbor turned to Prince Mo and Ji Qin, saying, "Let's go, we're going back." The excitement was over, and there was no fun in this crowd of people. The 3 of them squeezed out of the crowd, and not long after, another pair of male and female came on stage to spar, and the atmosphere in front of the arena was stirred up again. "Senior sister Yugue, what are you looking at?" Jiang Qi walked to Yugue's side and asked in a low voice. When she came over, she saw Yugue standing alone outside the crowd, staring blankly in a direction, not knowing what she was in a daze for. Yugue was slightly startled, and then she recovered and shook her head. I probably saw wrongly. Impossible. Let's go. What's impossible, what did you see? Yugue laughed bitterly. When I came over just now, I must have seen wrongly, and mistook a figure for little junior sister. Junior sister. Jiang Qi muttered to himself and sighed. Junior sister should be 15 this year. Ah. Yugue replied indifferently. Although junior apprentice sister is talented and intelligent, she is in the lower star field. If she wants to come to the 6 prefectures continent, she will have to climb the stairway to heaven. No matter how talented she is, it's only been 3 years. It's impossible. That's right. Jiang Qi nodded. Senior sister, we also need to go back and prepare. Just now, the instructor came to inform me that we'll be leaving tomorrow morning. All right. Yugue turned around and said, "Let's go. Let's go back and prepare. This time, we must obtain the qualifications to cultivate in Spirit Realm on Brinset Island." This meant that each and every one of them had to enter the top 100 in the Academy's ranking competition. They had a blood feud on their backs, and they urgently needed to improve themselves. Time waits for no one. Only by working hard could they live up to the kindness and nurturing of the sect. Arbor, Mo Lien, and Heichin returned to their small courtyard. The moment they opened the door, they saw the 5 instructors gathered in front of the stone table, waiting for them. Qi Xianxian turned around and looked at her pitifully, with a pitiful look. Chapter 1946. Duanmu, Mata, and the others also stood in front of the stone table. Other than the little fatty, who was probably still chatting with the big sisters, everyone else had arrived. I received notice that the people from Heavenly Bestow Academy will head to the venue first tomorrow. We from the other academies will head over a bit later and can depart at noon. Wei Wei swept them a glance. So everyone, make your own preparations tonight and have a good night's rest. Everyone nodded. Zhou Danjin glanced at them and asked suspiciously, "Where's the fatty? Why haven't I seen him the whole day?" Everyone silently looked at each other without uttering a word. "That's enough. You've been outside for the whole day. Rest early and don't cause trouble. As for the fatty, when you see him come back, tell him that you should all go back and rest." Everyone looked up at the clear sky. Strictly speaking, it was only the afternoon right now. However, Instructor Wei Wei said that they had been outside for the whole day and even told them to go back to their rooms to rest early. "Do you want to eat a good meal tonight?" Arbor suddenly asked. When Zhou Danjin thought of the dishes that the little fellow brought, he was about to drool. He nodded repeatedly and said, "Yes, yes, yes, I'll order a dish, beggar's chicken. I'll order braised pork ribs. I want winter melon. I want to eat prawns, prawns." Xian, this foodie, almost drooled at the thought of fried prawns. The little stoic expressionlessly rolled her eyes at them and harumphed, "I'm not a restaurant," before trotting back to her room. "Sleep early, you won't be able to digest if you eat too much." "You." Everyone bit their handkerchiefs and hatefully watched her departing figure. They really wanted to gang up on this little fellow and beat her up. Why the heck did she suggest adding more dishes but not add more in the end? Wasn't she teasing them? Prince Mo waved his hand in amusement and returned to his room. When night fell, everyone sighed and took out the white steamed buns from their pockets, planning to make do with some pickled vegetables. They didn't expect to hear the little stoic's crisp voice. "Aren't you all coming out to eat?" Everyone scrambled to get out of the door and saw the rich dishes on the stone table at a glance. Afterwards, they saw that hateful little stoic, dressed in light green casual clothes, was currently sitting in front of the stone table with Prince Mo, looking at them expressionlessly. Xuan's fried prawns, Mata's braised pork ribs, and Senior Brother Lu's winter melon soup. Teacher Zhou's beggar's chicken. Wow, ordering food is really useful. Everyone gathered around him, feeling so happy that they were about to fly. Little Fatty slowly returned. The moment he pushed open the courtyard door, he saw everyone eating and fighting around a stone table. The chopsticks were like raindrops as they ate happily. He hurriedly closed the door behind him and rushed forward to yell, "Oh my God, why didn't you wait for me to eat? Who knows how long you're going to chat with those big sisters? Aya, let's go, let me have a seat. Stop pushing. Everyone has a share." Arbor looked at this group of people reincarnated from starvation and speechlessly raised his hand. "Everyone, move aside." Soon after, he took out a washbasin-sized soup bowl from his inner world and placed it in front of everyone. It was filled with spirit bamboo shoots and fresh meat soup. A dense aura of spiritual power spread out in the small courtyard. Heavens! Hurry and move aside, I'll have a bowl first. Little Fatty yelled and rushed to scoop up a bowl full of soup. He held the bowl and drank it while praising it incessantly. Chapter 1947. Hey, Jojo, what kind of bamboo shoots are these? I feel like my spiritual power is flowing away as soon as I eat them. I'm so full today. Who's going to take a walk with me later? Then why are you still eating? I'll digest after I finish eating. Jojo, I think you're amazing. You can have anything you want. We'll just take you wherever we go in the future. Yes, yes. We don't need to take anything else. Arbor glanced at the little fatty expressionlessly. In your dreams. Everyone enjoyed the meal. Even Instructor Wei Wei, who had always been serious, showed a rare smile. Ani Prefecture. The prefecture master, Guan Zhaotang, looked coldly at his fourth daughter who was lying on the sickbed. Prefecture master. A middle-aged man walked in quickly and saluted. Fourth Miss, why did you suddenly come back? The fourth Miss of the Guan family represented Jiaqing Academy and went to Daizhong Mountain in Poland Prefecture to participate in the preliminaries. She suddenly came back with serious injuries, which surprised everyone. What a piece of trash. Guan Zhaotang snorted. She won't amount to much. The middle-aged man, Qi Lianhai, silently glanced at the young woman on the sickbed. Guan Yiying's original appearance could no longer be seen. Half of her face seemed to have exploded, and her skin and flesh were all exposed. His two eyes had long since turned into two holes, and his eyeballs could no longer be seen. It's useless to keep such a piece of trash. Guan Zhaotang said coldly, dispose of her. Yes, Prefecture Master. Qi Lianhai lowered his head and responded. He couldn't help but feel a little emotional. The fourth Miss risked her life and used her last breath to contact her family, who helped her open a special passage and ran back. In the end, she was inevitably treated as a piece of trash. Guan Zhaotang had 6 daughters and 3 sons. He was in the prime of his life and had many wives and concubines around him. He could have as many children as he wanted. Naturally, he couldn't raise a piece of trash to make things difficult for him. What was the point? If that was the case, he might as well die outside. Qi Lianhai shook his head. After watching Guan Zhaotang leave with a cold expression, he walked forward and cupped his hands in salute to the fourth young miss who was lying on the sickbed. My apologies, fourth young miss. Qi Lianhai reached out and grabbed Guan Yiying's neck. He released a bit of spirit power from his hand and held Guan Yiying for a moment. Guan Yiying struggled fiercely for less than 3 seconds. Her kicking legs gradually slowed down, and finally, she stopped breathing. Qi Lianhai tidied up his clothes, turned around, and walked out of the door. He cupped his hands towards Guan Zhaotang, who was standing in front of the door with his back facing him, and said, Manor Lord, it's been settled. Do you want me to send someone to Poland Manor to investigate the situation? Guan Zhaotang coldly snorted, although little Four is a useless trash, she is still my daughter. Whoever did this to her, I will naturally make them pay the price. Yes. Qi Lianhai turned around and went out, immediately gathering people. Daughter, my daughter. A mournful scream came from outside the door. A beautiful woman wearing a small white flower on her head staggered into the room and grabbed Guan Zhaotang's sleeve. Master, this concubine heard that Yiying has just returned with serious injuries. Can this concubine? Guan Zhaotang impatiently pulled back his sleeve. Go take a look at her for the last time. Later, choose a day to burn her. The woman immediately paled and fell to the ground. Chapter 1948. The semi-finals were arranged to be held at the Xinghua Gladiator Arena, which was the closest to the Buran Sea. In the past, the semi-finals and finals were generally held at the Xinghua Gladiator Arena. Firstly, it was customary. Secondly, Xinghua was outside of the 6 prefectures, so the referees at the Xinghua Gladiator Arena were more impartial. Thirdly, the Gladiator Arena's geographical location was good. After the competition ended, the winning students could immediately board a ship at the Buran Sea and sail to Brinthit Island. The participating students were all teams that stood out after the first round of auditions. Naturally, everyone's face carried a bit of arrogance. When Zhou Danjin brought the students from the top academies to Xinghua City, it was about noon on the second day. Everyone first made arrangements for their accommodation. The inns they chose were naturally close to the Xinghua Gladiator Arena. This way, it would be more convenient for them to go back and forth every day. There were quite a few inns around the Xinghua Gladiator Arena. During the qualifiers, all the inns would rack their brains to attract customers. Arbor and the others found a relatively large Audiobook inn and booked all the rooms on the third floor. This way, everyone could live more comfortably. Audiobook inn also provided food, but the prices were obviously very expensive. After eating dinner, everyone unanimously decided that they shouldn't waste spirit coins blindly. It would be better to eat Miss Chiao's food in the future. The next day, everyone was ready to go. Early in the morning, they gathered on the first floor of the inn, full of energy. Along with the sound of the stairs, several teams came down from the second floor. Some students curiously sized up Arbor and the others. When they checked in, they had already heard that the third floor was booked by a nouveau riche academy. So it was them. Hey, isn't this Instructor Wei Wei? I really didn't expect that a lousy academy like the top academies would have the guts to book the entire third floor. They must have borrowed money. A slightly ear-piercing voice came from the stairs. Instructor Wei Wei, Zhou Danjin, and a few other instructors just happened to walk down the stairs. When their gazes fell on the young man who mocked them, their faces immediately darkened. Arbor and the others naturally didn't recognize the man who mocked them. He sized him up and saw that the man's appearance could be considered decent, but his eyes were filled with mockery and ridicule when he looked at Instructor Wei Wei. Zhao Li, Instructor Wei Wei said in a deep voice, "You have no right to interfere in the matters of the top academies." Scram. Qiao Mu and the other students were a bit surprised. In their impression, although Instructor Wei Wei was a serious person and sometimes had a sharp tongue, he would never treat others so rudely. This man called Zhao Li in front of him seemed to have quite a grudge with Instructor Wei Wei. Zhao Li turned a deaf ear to Wei Wei's cursing. He even shrugged nonchalantly. "Fortunately, I graduated from your top-notch academy a step earlier. Otherwise, until now, I would still be." "Oh, isn't this the Academy's #1 genius, Duanmu Qing? TSK, you're still in the Academy." "Ah, right. You have to accumulate 3,000 points in a year to graduate. Otherwise, you'll have to study endlessly." "How could I forget?" Zhao Li laughed loudly as he walked to Duanmu Qing's side. He placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Duanmu, have you ever thought of changing schools?" Duanmu Qing slapped his hand away. "See you tomorrow." Chapter 1949. "I'm not that familiar with you," Duanmu Qing said indifferently with a cold expression. "Ha ha ha." Zhao Li wasn't angry. He crossed his arms carelessly and cast a sidelong glance at the people from Premier Academy. "Yo, the number of students seems to have increased by quite a bit." These two junior sisters, did you just enter a top-notch academy? You too, don't be fooled by Premier Academy at such a young age. Don't think that just because it's called Premier Academy, it's the best academy in the 6 prefectures continent. Actually, this academy is at the very bottom of all the academies, ha 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 ha. Bam! When Qiao Mu saw that person walking in front of her and Qi Xianxian while bragging so much that his saliva was about to spray onto their faces, she immediately kicked out in disdain, causing that person to stumble back several steps. "Stay away from us." Arbor angrily wiped her face with her sleeve. "You're dirty and smelly. You're already an adult, but you can't control your saliva." Scram. Scram scram scram. Everyone, . Zhao Li's face instantly flushed red, and he flew into a rage out of humiliation. Although he didn't look very outstanding, his cultivation was very strong. In Flying Flower Academy, he was the target of many female students. When had he ever been treated like this by a girl? Was this person still a girl? Did she have any taste at all? Arbor was someone who even disdained young Master Ding, who was as beautiful as a flower, for being smelly. She even detested the 2 magnificent young masters of the Qin family, not to mention this average-looking man in front of her. In Miss Chow's opinion, this strange blabbermouth was even noisier than Boundless Saber in front of her and Xian Xian. He was simply a big idiot. Prince Amos silently twitched his mouth. Everyone lit a row of candles for this Zhao Li in their hearts. How pitiful. Courting death by provoking Jojo, what else could it be other than asking for a snub? You. Zhao Li felt pain in his calf from the stoic-faced girl's kick, but he couldn't bend down to rub his calf because of his pride. He could only glare hatefully at Arbor with a stiff face and say angrily, "You don't know what's good for you. This young master was just reminding you out of goodwill. I advise you not to take detours. Do you really think that a top-notch academy like this can really become a top-notch existence in the 6 prefectures? It's not up to you to decide whether or not he's a top-notch existence in the 6 prefectures. Let's see after the competition." So long-winded and full of nonsense. Where did this idiot come from? Scram! Arbor roared. Chi Xian and Little Fatty picked up their weapons at the same time and were about to rush up and smash Zhao Li. Zhao Li was so frightened that he retreated 2 steps back with a face full of panic. He felt that he simply couldn't get along with this bunch of crazy students from a top academy. Young students nowadays, why the fuck did they act like they wanted to? I'm too lazy to talk to you. In the future, you will suffer. Zhao Li's face was red with anger. He angrily flicked his sleeves and turned around. Just as he was about to step out of the door, his left leg went soft, and with a paw sound, he knelt in front of the door. His head heavily knocked against the doorframe, leaving a red mark on the spot. The teams that had gathered at the entrance and were about to leave were all shocked by his actions. Following which, they roared with laughter. A female disciple from another academy held her belly in laughter and pointed at Zhao Li, who was kneeling on the ground with a flushed face. Oh my, the little girl was right. He really is a big idiot. Chapter 1950. Senior Brother Zhao. The team leader, Gu Liuli, hurriedly ordered people to help him up and supported the limping Zhao Li out of the door. Before she left, she turned around to glare at Arbor and the others and said, "Does the top academy dare to accept Soaring Flower Academy's challenge in this competition? You don't have the right." Arbor coldly swept her a glance. "What right does a mere level 1 spirit master have to challenge us?" Scram! Everyone instantly couldn't laugh anymore. If the stoic-faced little girl could say that, it meant that her own strength was definitely much higher than a level 1 spirit master's. She dared to arrogantly tell a level 1 spirit master to scram. Perhaps. She wouldn't do such a thing if she didn't have some skills. You guys. Gulioli was about to explode in anger. She glared hatefully at the people from the top academy and dejectedly supported Zhao Li out under everyone's gazes. A bunch of baffling people. Qi Xian pursed her lips and turned her gaze to Zhou Danjin, whose expression was unclear. Instructor, who exactly are they? Zhou Danjin sighed. Let's talk as we walk. Today was the first day of the semi-finals, so it wasn't good to be late. When everyone exited Tranquil Inn, Zhou Danjin glanced at Instructor Wei Wei, who was walking at the back of the group, and then said to Arbor and the others, "Student Xiao, you must have thought that Instructor Wei Wei was targeting you from the start, right?" Arbor nodded without hesitation. That's right, if it weren't for her good temper, this Instructor Wei Wei would have been beaten up by her 800 years ago. Zhou Danjin speechlessly glanced at this honest child. Actually, your Instructor Wei Wei once accepted a student with pretty good talent. It's just that this student was born in an aristocratic family and had an excellent family background, so he was very arrogant. Later on, because he looked down on our shabby academy, he betrayed the academy during a very important competition. From then on, your instructor Wei Wei became much more depressed, and he became a man of few words. When we accepted students in the future, what we valued was no longer the student's talent, but their moral character. Student Xiao, your birth is too good. When you first came to our academy peak, you flew over on an ancient phoenix. Zhou Danjin glanced at her and said, everyone knows very well that you must have an extraordinary family background. Wait, let me interrupt. Arbor could not help but interrupt. I don't have any family background. I'm just a poor child from a small family in the lower star field. Alright, you can continue. Everyone was speechless. Why did they want to laugh so badly? This was clearly a very serious topic. Teacher Zhou's mouth twitched speechlessly. Of course, he didn't want to argue with this lousy child about whether she had a strong family background or not. Instead, he continued, when you first came to our school, you had a fight with Hua Tao. Speaking of this, Hua Tao couldn't help but cover his face. Could he stop talking about such an embarrassing thing? That arrogant aura, as well as that thick aura of a young lady from a powerful family, made your instructor Wei Wei think of the student who betrayed the academy. Of course, now you already know that this person was Zhao Li, who came to provoke us just now. He's from the Shuntian Prefecture's Zhao family. The Zhao family can be considered a first-rate aristocratic family in Shuntian Prefecture. Chapter 1951. Back then, he came to sign up out of admiration. His goal was to become Sir Lu Yun's last disciple. Wait. Let me interrupt as well. Qi Xianxian couldn't help but ask, are you talking about the famous Sir Lu Yun of the 6 prefectures continent? I seem to have only read some legends about him in storybooks. I've heard about him from a storyteller. The little fatty raised his hand. Zhou Danji nodded, but after a year and a half, he still hasn't seen Sir Lu Yun, so he... Oh right, you guys still don't know, right? Young Master Lu Yun is actually your elusive principal. Zhou Danjin thought that the group of children might not know who young Master Lu Yun was, so he explained. Everyone's expression was like, the sky is going to rain red. What? You're saying that the number 1 expert of the 6 prefectures, Sir Lu Yun, is our principal? The little fatty had a strange expression. So, the student Zhao Li who was looking for trouble just now, because he hadn't seen the principal for a year and a half, he ran away. Sigh, it's because of this student Zhao Li. His talent is quite good. So, the cultivation plan that us instructors came up with for him is a step-by-step method that supports his characteristics. Furthermore, Instructor Wei Wei had spent a lot of effort on Zhao Li's cultivation method. That brat's sudden betrayal really made your instructor Wei Wei sad. Shut up, Zhou Danjin. Wei Wei's angry voice came from behind. Zhou Danjin hurriedly spoke faster, so, actually, Instructor Wei isn't born with a cold face. You guys should be a little more understanding of him. Student Xiao, Instructor Wei Wei only wants to temper your character and suppress the sharpness you exude. To put it bluntly, it's also for the sake of your future cultivation. Don't think that he's intentionally targeting you. Zhou Danjin. Okay, I won't say anymore. Zhou Danjin immediately shut his mouth and walked to the side with a smile, starting another day of nagging. Students, it's up to you to win glory for the academy in the semi-finals. Everyone silently glanced at him before turning their heads away in unison. Instructor Zhou's face was filled with helplessness. When he received the looks from Endless Blade and the others, he laughed awkwardly and said, "The dean is right. This batch of students is very energetic." The distance between Anping Inn and Xinghua Martial Arts Arena was only about a quarter of an hour's walk. By the time everyone arrived at the arena, the main people in charge of the tournament were already seated at the entrance. The three of them were all veterans in charge of competitions. Over the years, all the big and small competitions of the 6 prefectures' academy had basically come to their family's arena. Therefore, the people in charge of these battle arenas were quite familiar with the various instructors of the various academies. Instructor Zhou and Instructor Wei from the top academies are here. One of them quickly stepped forward and cupped his hands towards the crowd with a smile. Please come in. The seats have already been arranged. Thank you. Zhou Danjin smiled and cupped his hands at the person in charge. Mr. Hong is the main judge of this competition. There are also some things that you need to pay attention to. Everyone, please take a look at the rules and regulations. The person in charge handed Instructor Zhou a piece of red paper with many rules written on it. Only then did he turn around and call for the servant beside him to lead everyone in. Zhou Danjin nodded his head in thanks. Chapter 1952. As soon as they entered the ring-shaped arena, their ears were flooded with noise. The servant led them to the seating area and respectfully bowed to Zhou Danjin. Instructor Zhou, you can sit here. Then, after an hour, the first drawing of lots will take place. You can send a student to the arena to draw lots. You should all be clear about the rules of the competition, so I won't repeat them. Oh, okay. I'll take my leave. If you need any snacks or fruits, you can go to the sales area to buy 1 or 2. The servant pointed to the side of the ring-shaped seating area. Everyone turned to look, and couldn't help but feel speechless. It turned out that the big shots of the arena had thought of a way to do business this year. There was a sales area next to the seating area, and at first glance, there were indeed melon seeds, snacks, fruits, and quite a variety of food. As for the price, it was hard to say. They would probably have to use materials to exchange for 1 or 2, so there probably wouldn't be many people buying that. Everyone took their seats. Instructor Zhou flipped through the red paper with the rules written on it, and after looking at it for a while, he said to everyone, the rules this time are about the same as the previous years. The semi-finals are a competition between the academies. Specifically, before the start of the competition, a student will be sent to the arena to draw lots. If you draw the same number, you'll have a martial arts competition. After that, when there are only 30 academies left, it will officially enter the final round. At that time, the new rules will be followed. With so many academies, the semi-finals this time will probably take around 10 days. In the past, it was settled in 7 days. After Zhou Danjin finished speaking, he turned to look at Arbor. Student Xiao, you go up to the arena to draw lots. Arbor glanced at Instructor Zhou with an indescribable expression. Reason. The reason is really too simple. Instructor Zhou's face was smiling like a chrysanthemum, and he was overjoyed. Everyone knows, it's 3 words. You're lucky. Everyone, weren't instructors just 3 words? Instructor Zhou looked at Arbor with a smile. Student Xiao, what do you think? Nothing much. Arbor said indifferently. I'll tell you the truth. My luck has always been erratic. With this draw, I might be able to draw the strongest team. Which team is the strongest? Of course it's the top 3 from last year. Heaven Bestow Academy, Auspicious Academy, and Sunlight Academy. Are they very strong? Qi Xianxian was stunned. They didn't know much about Heavenly Bestowing Academy, but Auspicious Academy had been wiped out by JoJo when they were in the underground base. Guan Yiying's team isn't the only one in Juching Academy. Instructor Zhou waved his hand. Juching Academy was ranked 2nd in the last Academy ranking tournament. Their captain, Li Nanshan, is very strong. The last time we met, she had already broken through to become a level 10 Great Spiritual Master. In the individual rankings, Li Nanshan is ranked 3rd. don't you think she's strong? You little shrimps. If you run into Li Nanshan's team, you'd better surrender obediently. Zhou Danjin curled his lips. Instructor, what are you talking about? Mada's sudden shout almost made Zhou Danjin jump up in fright. What the fuck, this little bastard, roared into his ear. Instructor, we will definitely work hard to bring glory to our academy. Chapter 1953. Zhou Danjin gazed at his students with a gratified expression. The dean was right, they were indeed a group of hot-blooded youths. Alright, students, then whether or not the instructors will achieve meteoric success this time and whether or not the academy will be able to raise its status in the 6 prefectures continent will all depend on you. Zhou Danjin said with a smile before turning to look at Xiao Mu. Student Xiao, let's make a deal. You'll go draw the lots right away. Jojo, draw one for us. Everyone grabbed her small hand excitedly. Arbor looked at them expressionlessly, thinking that the students would say something encouraging. In the end, little Fatty said loudly, the weakest team. Chi Xianxian burst out laughing and pushed little Fatty's hand away. She jokingly scolded, go away. Instructor, what you're saying is that after we draw lots, the 2 academies will have a group battle. Arbor blinked and asked. Everyone inexplicably noticed that the little fellow's eyes seemed to be sparkling. At the mention of a group battle, her expression was especially comical. Instructor who waved his hand and smiled, of course it won't be as simple as a group battle. Oh, of course, if the 2 academies agree to a group battle, that's fine too. Usually, the way 2 academies battle is a one-on-one challenge. Of course, it can also be a one-on-one challenge. Understood. Everyone nodded in unison, their gazes shifting to Duan Muqing. Then they'll just have to let Duan Muqing go later. Duan Muqing only felt that the way little Fatty and the others looked at him was a bit off, and he couldn't help but shudder. What are you looking at? Everyone laughed foolishly and shook their heads. At this moment, a few more teams were led by the manservants of the arena and walked towards them. When they passed by, they nodded to each other as a greeting. Those who sat in their area were usually from academies that weren't very famous. Big academies like Sunlight Academy, Moonlight Academy, and Jiaqing Academy were all seated in the front row. Their small corner was separated from the front row by 40 to 50 academies. Arbor took out a bag of sunflower seeds and snacks, but before he could eat them, the people around him had already grabbed them. Miss Chow lowered her head to look at the empty bag before turning to meet the smiling Prince Mo's eyes. She angrily put away the empty bag and took out an apple to chew on. Half an hour later, all the seats in the circular area were basically filled. A spirited old man quickly walked up to the middle of the grand tournament stage and said to the people seated around him, "All right, can the 677 academies that have passed the preliminaries please send their student representatives up to the stage to draw lots?" The old man's voice was not very loud, but his words penetrated everyone's eardrums and were heard very clearly. "Student Xiao, it's up to you." Mada and the others said excitedly. Arbor stood up, only to hear a roar coming from the front. "Someone from Jiaqing Academy will definitely win. Who drew the perfect lot in the Sunlight Academy?" The roar was earth-shattering. Little Fatty said happily, "Jojo, how about we help you shout too?" "Yes, yes, yes, we'll shout for the top academies." "Shut up." Xiao Mu glared at them while sweating profusely, and her small face was dyed crimson red. His face was so hot and embarrassed. "Shout your sister, it's so tacky." Chapter 1954. Jojo's blushing. Before Madik could finish his sentence, Prince Mo glared daggers at him, scaring him so much that he swallowed the rest of his words. How preposterous. Only he could see his wife blushing. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal sat beside him, munching on melon seeds. He said in a down-to-earth manner, "Sigh, I think there's going to be a good show to watch this time." Arbor ran all the way to the arena area. She followed the crowd up the stairs and onto the martial arts stage. With Crown Prince Mo and the others' outstanding eyesight, they naturally saw the little lady standing at the edge of the martial arts competition stage. She was bored to death as she stared at those people who were desperately trying to squeeze into the center, as if they could draw lots earlier if they squeezed in. The martial arts stage was about 100 feet wide. It didn't seem crowded even if a few hundred people stood on it. However, everyone was eagerly trying to squeeze in, making the few people at the edge stand out. All right. Line up and draw lots in order. The number of academies participating in the semi-finals this time was beyond the expectations of the martial arts arena manager. With so many people drawing lots one by one, it would take about 15 minutes. All right, line up and walk through the lot pot in order. Don't hesitate and don't stop. If I find out that any of you are using your spiritual awareness to read the contents of the lot pot, it will be considered cheating and you will be disqualified. The crowd was in an uproar, but after the old man's reprimand, the noise quieted down. They hurriedly lined up one by one and walked to the big table where the lot pot was placed. With one person following another, the drawing of lots was actually quite fast. If anyone deliberately stopped, they would naturally receive a stern warning from the old man. It was only when the people who had drawn lots all lined up on the other side uneasily that the people on Xiao Mu's side started moving slightly. One of the young men nodded at Arbor and said, "Miss, please go first." Xiao Mu waved her small hand, indicating for him to go first. It was only when most of the people had left that she dragged her feet and nonchalantly lined up at the very end of the line. Didn't Instructor Zhou say that she was lucky? She refused to let him have his way and dragged him to the last one. She resigned herself to fate and let God arrange whatever team for them. Teacher Zhou saw that her attitude was negative, so he would definitely not let her go on stage to draw lots tomorrow. One by one, they drew lots. In the end, the young man also drew a bamboo stick. He turned around and nodded at her before standing to the side. Arbor pursed his small mouth and walked forward proudly. His small hand felt around inside the bamboo tube for a long time. Cough. It wasn't until the old man coughed lightly that she raised her head and glared at the old man. "Where's the signature?" The old man's mouth twitched, and he said with some amusement, "Little girl, you don't have to smoke anymore." Just now, this old man said that there are 667 academies participating in this round of competition. Naturally, one of them will be given a bye. "Congratulations, little girl, your academy has a bye." Everyone was speechless. Arbor. The old man, ? This little girl had an indescribable expression on her face. What was going on? "Student Yu, what's wrong?" At the table, Shen Xinran, who was also from Tianxi Academy, narrowed her eyes and looked at Yu Gui, who was sitting next to her. She had always felt that Yu Gui's relationship with Jiang Qi and the others in the team was a little strange. The sixth watch ended. Chapter 1955. Shen Xinran looked at Yu Gui and the others suspiciously. She still felt that Yu Gui, Jiang Qi, and Lu Ling were a little strange. She could say that they didn't have any relationship, but sometimes they would inadvertently reveal that kind of familiar gaze, which made Shen Xinran believe that it was impossible for them not to have any interactions. If they were familiar with each other, but after interacting for a day, Yu Gui and Jiang Qi had not spoken more than 5 sentences. If they were familiar with each other, then they were too good at holding back. Shen Xinran looked at Yu Gui again, looking like she wanted to get to the bottom of it. "What's wrong, Yu Shuyo? Your face doesn't look good. Are you okay?" Where do you feel uncomfortable? Yugure suppressed her excitement. She almost didn't need to look back to know what kind of mood the few junior sisters sitting behind her were in at the moment. A few pairs of eyes flashed with a faint light. Inch by inch, they struggled to leave the stage, suppressing the desire to rush back to the sect and tell everyone that our little junior sister is here. Glancing at Shinran indifferently, Yugure said coldly, "Oh, I'm fine. Sorry for troubling student Shin." Shinran's face sank slightly. Damn it, it was this kind of lukewarm attitude again, making her warm face stick to a cold but again. She was the daughter of the Shin family, born to be superior. If not for the fact that Yugure and the others had good aptitudes, she would be too lazy to rope them in and try every possible way to bring them into her family. A group of cowards from the lower star domain, shameless. She was willing to give them an olive branch, but these guys who didn't know what was good for them, not only did they not give her this olive branch like dogs, they even dared to go against her and hide everything from her, the leader. This was simply outrageous. Shinran looked at Yugure and the others coldly, thinking in her heart, people probably only understand how important opportunities are when they are in a desperate situation. Yugure and this group of people were destined to become dogs that she, Shinran, could order around at her beck and call. Just wait and see. A dark light flashed past Shinran's eyes. At the same time on the battle stage, the head judge in charge of the students drawing lots, the old man Hong Chi, looked at the young lady in front of him with a complicated expression. Could it be that she was not excited and unhappy? This was the first round of the semi-finals. At the very least, it would save their entire team 1 to 2 days worth of combat power. The other academies might be exhausted from fighting today and tomorrow, and they would still have to continue the second round of the competition, but wasn't that a good thing? But the little girl's expression was obviously a little off. "Little girl, which academy are you from? This old man will help you register." Hong Chi coughed lightly. "A top academy." Instructor Zhou jumped up and shouted at the old man from afar. The old man was speechless. Zhou Danjin beamed with joy as he waved his paw at the little person in the center of the stage. He nodded with a gratified expression. As expected of our lucky student Xiao. Prince Mo and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal wanted to laugh. Based on their understanding of the little fellow, they guessed that this child originally wanted to secretly poke fun at Instructor Zhou. In the end, things didn't go as planned. Miss Chow expressionlessly watched as the elder finished registering her. She nodded at her and said, "Congratulations again, student. You've helped your academy draw a bye." Chapter 1956. Everyone, let's give a round of applause. Congratulations to this extremely lucky student from the top academy. Arbor's face was stoic as all sorts of feelings welled up in her heart that everyone below the stage clapped with all their might. Instructor Zhou, that idiot, shouted, "Good job," in between. Everyone on the stage had an indescribable expression as they looked at this little girl with a stoic face. Why was it like this? If they had known that they would be last and automatically get a bye, why did they have to squeeze in the first place? They spent so much effort, but in the end, they couldn't even compare to the girl who was leisurely last. Our dear Xiao Mu sighed. Sure enough, everything was fated. It wasn't up to her. Now that her luck had come, there was no way she could stop it. Next, please count off your numbers. Those who have the same number, please line up in pairs. Everyone immediately sighed and lined up according to their numbers. Xiao Mu also drooped her head and dejectedly walked down the martial arts stage. The rest of the matter had nothing to do with her. Everyone in the seats looked at this little girl with a stoic face as she walked down and curiously looked at her a few times. Yugue's gaze fell on the little girl. When she saw her stomp past her on the stage, her hands on her knees clenched into fists. Then, her breathing gradually calmed down. She couldn't be anxious. But how could she not be anxious? Yushuyo, are you okay? Shinran heard her breathing become heavier and couldn't help but be a bit surprised. Yugue silently lowered her head and secretly decided to leave Xinghua Arena before looking for her little junior sister. The little girl returned to the top academy's seating area and was surrounded by a group of people. Everyone was scrambling to give her a head rub, but who would have thought that someone would suddenly raise an arm and carry Miss Chow over? You're not allowed to touch her. Each and every one of them wanted to touch his wife. How could he let that happen? Sigh. Xiao Mu sighed and sat down next to Crown Prince Mo without a word. She then fished out a carrot and bit down on it with a crunch. She was a bit depressed. What should she do? Look at Instructor Zhou's blooming chrysanthemum face and how he was smiling. Just looking at it made him feel a little vexed. Zhou Danjin praised with a smile. Thank you for your hard work. Xiao Mu cast him a silent glance before silently shifting to sit down next to Crown Prince Mo. Her large eyes darted around as she dryly remarked, occasionally, I get lucky. Don't worry, your luck will run out tomorrow. It's not just occasionally. Instructor Zhou chuckled. You're being modest, aren't you? Let me tell you about Zhou. Zhou Dan moved closer to Arbor, but there was still Prince Mo between them. Noticing the Crown Prince's cold gaze drifting over, Instructor Zhou coughed dryly and stepped back. With a face full of smiles, he said, for this competition, we'll send you to draw lots. I don't think anyone has any objections. No problem, no problem. Everyone shook their heads. In terms of luck, if Jojo claimed second place, no one would dare to claim first place. Arbor's little face was expressionless as she chuckled. Other than the fact that her voice sounded like she was laughing, her delicate eyebrows didn't even twitch. Everyone thought that the little girl's expression was a bit funny. See you later. Arbor's little face was tense as he tugged at Mo Lien beside him. Mo Lien understood and stood up. Chapter 1957. Since there was no need to fight, what was the point of her staying here? Of course, she was going to do what she was supposed to do. The young couple waved their sleeves and floated away. Shichen, Little Taisui, Infinite Blade, and the others naturally couldn't be bothered to stay here any longer, so they also left. Director Zhou laughed awkwardly and reached out to touch his nose. That's right, everyone. Let's watch how other people play the game and learn some experience from it. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Instructor Zhou speechlessly looked at the back of the students' heads as they turned away. All right, children, as long as you're happy. In the other room. Shinran frowned and turned her face. There was a dense crowd behind her, so she couldn't see what Yugue was looking at. However, she knew very well that Yugue's mind wasn't on the competition from the beginning. Shinran said coldly, it's our academy's turn soon. Yugue, Jiangqi, you guys better focus. Don't get eliminated in the first round. A crisp laughter came from beside Shinran. The girl who spoke was in her early 20s, and her apple-like face was glowing with a smile. She deliberately tilted her head and put on an innocent look, as if she was just teasing them and didn't mean any harm. Zhuang Meng, don't worry. We'll be responsible for ourselves and the competition to the end. Yugue replied indifferently, then turned her face away and didn't look at Shinran and the others anymore. Zhuang Meng shrugged. All right. I'm just worried about you guys. After all, although we belong to two different teams, the total points will be counted together. Yugue ignored her, and Zhuang Meng felt bored. In reality, Shinran and Zhuang Meng were worried for nothing. With Yugue's strength, the first few rounds before the semi-finals were simply a one-sided slaughter. Soon, Yugue led Jiang Qi and the others down from the arena. They didn't return to their seats, but walked out of the arena together. "Where are you guys going?" Shen Xinran and Zhuang Meng's voices suddenly sounded behind them. Two pairs of eyes looked at them with scrutiny. "We're done with the competition, so we're going out for a walk," Lu Ling said indifferently. "Yeah, it's a bit stuffy here. Seniors, please pay more attention to your team's upcoming match." Shen Xinran smiled. "I feel that you guys are very strange. Could it be that you guys are spies from the other academies?" Yugue's face turned cold. "What do you think the Heavenly Bestow Academy has that we would covet?" "Oh. No. The spiritual techniques of the Heavenly Bestow Academy are at least of the earth level." "Who's after your spiritual techniques?" Little Canon Fong Su laughed mockingly. "That's all you have. Fong Su, watch your attitude," Shen Xinran said angrily. What a joke. A few country bumpkins from the lower star region, after living in the 6 prefectures continent for a few years, did they think that their horizons were higher than the natives of the 6 prefectures? We're all schoolmates from the same academy, why do you have to make such a fuss?" "Shut up. You're already so old and you're still pretending to be cute. Do you think that just because you have the word cute in your name, you're really cute?" Little Pao opened his mouth and attacked directly. Disgusting. Every time she spoke, she would speak in a coquettish tone. "Sorry, I'm a woman. You can't be coquettish with me. You." Zhuang Meng was hit by a barrage of verbal attacks. She was so angry that her whole body was shaking. Chapter 1958. What's the fuss about? A middle-aged tutor from Heavenly Bestow Academy walked over with a dark face. "Tutor, they left without permission," Yugue said with a cold face. "We've already finished competing. It's fine after the competition." That tutor reprimanded without any explanation. "You think that you can be proud just because you've successfully advanced to the first round?" "We didn't say that." Yugue's face darkened. She pursed her lips and looked straight at the middle-aged tutor. This tutor had always been on the side of the Shin family's eldest daughter. Compared to the Shin family, Yugue and the other girls had no background. If it weren't for the fact that they were quite talented, how would they have the chance to stand here and represent the academy in the competition? Arrogant and self-satisfied. No organization. The middle-aged tutor reprimanded with a dark face. "Even if you finish competing, can't you stay and continue watching Shen Xinran's team compete? Xinran and the others are your teammates. I don't know what's going on in your heads all day. You're so weird. You don't think about things you should think about, and you blindly think about things you shouldn't think about. Go back and sit properly. In the future, pay attention to team unity. Don't act on your own." Little Canon Fong Su was about to explode in anger. Just as she was about to speak, Chen Hanzi pressed her hand down forcefully. "Got it." Yugue nodded coldly. She glanced indifferently at the smug Shen Xinran and the others, then led Lu Ling, Fong Su, and the others back to their seats. That middle-aged tutor also followed them back angrily. He glanced at Yugue and the others from the corner of his eyes. When he saw the indifferent expressions on their faces, he couldn't help but explode in anger. They really couldn't be taught. 2 days later. The students from the top academies entered energetically, attracting the attention of many other academies. Everyone whispered among themselves. The top academies are really super lucky. That's right. Look at them. They haven't competed in the past 2 days. Unlike us, we're exhausted even after resting for a night. Arbor had just sat down when Tutor Zhou's Methreya Buddha laughter sounded in his ears. He, Student Xiao. I'll have to trouble you to go up and draw a lot this time. Arbor glanced at Instructor Zhou from the corner of his eyes. He slowly got up and walked towards the stage. When he arrived at the battle stage, he realized that everyone was hiding in the corners of the huge battle stage, leaving an empty area in the middle. The men and women who had been standing in the corner with her yesterday all looked at her helplessly and stood in the middle of the room. Oh, they've all learned their lesson. Arbor's eyes flashed, and he naturally walked to the first place and stood still. Since so many people wanted to snatch the empty slot, he would give it to them. Arbor had just stood still when the old man's angry voice came from the side. What are you all doing? All of you, line up. Line up. What are you all doing in the corner? Those who don't line up within 3 minutes will be disqualified. Today, there are 339 academies participating in the martial arts competition. All of you, line up and draw lots. Don't dawdle and fall behind. Old rules, whoever cheats with spiritual sense will be disqualified. Everyone looked at each other. Everyone wanted someone else to line up first. They were fighting over the last spot. What a joke. Everyone knew the routine. Who didn't want to get a bye? Who didn't want to advance naturally? Miss, how about I draw first? Chapter 1959. Arbor waved her hand. That guy from the day before had come again, but she didn't need it. First place was first place. It didn't matter. Xiao Mu took the lead and pattered to the bamboo pot. She casually picked a stick and pattered to the side to stand. Humph. Whoever wanted to be last in line to take advantage of the free draw, let them be. In any case, Jojo didn't want to go on stage to draw lots again tomorrow. Everyone finished drawing lots. Only then did the old man nod his head and look at the stupefied student at the back of the line. This idiot was holding a bamboo stick in his hand. He was probably wondering why he still had a stick in his hand when he was the last in line. Shouldn't it be a free draw? Isn't everyone curious why the last in line also has a stick in his hand? Everyone suddenly had a bad premonition. The Xinhua martial arts arena was really full of tricks. It was impossible to guard against them. Now, just like yesterday, stand in pairs according to the corresponding numbers. The old man stroked his beard and said with a smile, 0, don't look for others. Come out and stand next to this old man. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Only then did they realize that the free draw this time was 0. Everyone quickly found their corresponding teams. Some were happy and some were sad. When they saw that their opponents were weaker than them, they were naturally happy. When they saw that their opponents were stronger than them, they immediately hung their heads dejectedly. Miss Qiao held the bamboo stick in her hand and stared at it for a long time with a strange expression. Then, she slowly moved to the old man's side with the speed of a turtle. The old man stroked his beard and smiled at the crowd. When he felt that someone had moved to his side, he smiled and turned his head. Lucky little guy, you got the free draw, huh? Why is it you again? Arbor had an indescribable expression and looked at the old man with a strange expression. On the martial arts stage, the student representatives from the other several hundred academies simultaneously looked at her. Those pairs of eyes were like daggers, stabbing at Xiao Mu's body with a swish. If it happened once, it would be luck. If it happened twice, then it would be the ancestors burning incense. How could this little girl be so infuriating? Teacher, I suggest that we don't let this girl draw lots on stage next time. That's right, let them change their representatives. At the end of the day, Instructor Zhou's wild laughter rang out again. Old mister. It was time to register. Same old rules, ha ha ha, a top academy. The old man looked at the indignant representatives speechlessly. He coughed lightly and waved to Arbor. Little girl, come with me to register. Don't worry, there won't be a by tomorrow. The old man hurriedly tried to calm everyone down. Fuck, next time I won't bring this girl along to draw lots. Yes, yes, request for a change. Switch. Arbor looked at the crowd innocently, turned around, and jumped off the stage without looking back, returning to his seat. 2 days ago, because there were many teams participating in the first round of the semi-finals, the competition lasted for 2 full days. However, as the participating teams were eliminated one by one, the strength of both teams increased. The competition in the next few days would not be too easy. It was estimated that the second round of the semi-finals would take at least 2 days of selection. In other words, the teams from the top academies who had hit the jackpot could relax for 4 days in a row. First 5 chapters. Tonight, more chapters. Today, more chapters. Chapter 1960. Xinhua Martial Arena. In the front row of the Key Academy's seating area, Zhuang Meng pouted and tugged at the corner of Shen Xinran's clothes. Shen Xinran impatiently turned around to look at her, only to see Zhuang Meng pursing her lips at her. Shen Xinran followed her gaze and saw Yu Gue, Jiang Qi, and the others sitting in a row. Although they didn't say anything, it could be seen that they were in a pretty good mood. A faint smile hung on the corners of their mouths. Especially Yu Gue, this girl. She usually had a stern face all day long, and her features were rather heroic. At first glance, she didn't seem easy to get along with. But today's Yu Gue seemed to be a bit different from usual. Humph. Shen Xinran rolled her eyes and slowly turned her head. She asked one of the attendants who was following closely behind her, "Have you arranged everything?" "Yes, Mississippi. Everything has been arranged according to your instructions." Shen Xinran nodded, revealing a trace of disdainful mockery. She wanted to see, when a group of arrogant people walked into a hopeless situation, what kind of beast-like wails would they let out. At this time, the middle-aged instructor from Heavenly Bestow Academy slowly walked over with 2 other instructors. "Come and receive today's spirit-returning medicinal liquid." One of the instructors frowned and said, "Shen Xinran has 3 bottles. Zhuang Meng has 2 bottles, and everyone else has 1 bottle each." Yu Gue and the others accepted the bottles indifferently and returned to their seats without a trace of fluctuation in their expressions. Don't ask why Shen Xinran could have 3 bottles while Zhuang Meng could have 2 bottles. This kind of injustice was everywhere. Ever since they entered this Heavenly Bestow Academy, this kind of thing had happened frequently. If they were to fuss over everything, then it wouldn't be long before they would be angered to death. In this world, there was no place that treated everyone equally like the Holy Water sect. There was no distinction between the inner and outer sections. Whether it was the direct disciples or ordinary disciples of the 3 peak masters, their cultivation resources were basically the same. A paradise like the Holy Water sect that they would definitely do their best to pursue it for the rest of their lives. "Senior Yu Gue, do you want to go up the stage together?" Zhuang Meng tilted her head and put on an innocent appearance. Yu Gue ignored her, causing Miss Zhuang's smile to freeze on her face. Fong Su snorted. Following Yu Gue, the 6 of them walked towards the arena. Senior sister, little junior sister didn't leave. During the first round, little junior sister finished drawing her lot and left with the crown prince of Mo Kingdom. However, in the second round, little junior sister was still sitting there and had not left. I saw it. Yu Gue was also very anxious. In the past 2 days, the 3 mentors had strictly forbidden them from leaving the inn and wandering the streets. Shin Shinran and Zhuang Meng had been floating in front of them like ghosts all day long, so they had not had a chance to talk to their little junior sister. Little junior sister would definitely see them when they entered the martial arts competition. She wondered if little junior sister would misunderstand. Senior sister, don't think too much. Let's deal with the current situation first. Jiang Qi whispered beside her. Yes. Yugui nodded and took a deep breath with her 5 senior and junior sisters before stepping onto the arena. The opposite team was already standing in the ring. They had the same number of people as them. They were the students of Shuntian Mansion's Moonlight Academy. Senior sisters, please advise us. The 6 of them bowed courteously. Yugui and the other 5 naturally returned the bow. Subsequently, both sides withdrew their sharp blades at the same time and activated their spirit energy. Although the 101 votes weren't fully cast, I'll add more for you guys. Chapter 1961. Little fatty, Mata, look over there. Aren't those 2 people from Che Ruman's team? Qi Xianxian suddenly pointed at the stage and shouted. Save them. Mata nodded. Ko Hongwen also said, oh, I really didn't expect that the 2 people who participated in the entrance exam with us actually ran off to Moonlight Academy now. They really are quite good at mingling. I remember that those 2 people are called Ping Guang and Zhu Bozong, right? Seems like it. Jojo, do you still remember that Che Ruman? Qi Xianxian asked curiously. I don't think I've seen Che Ruman ever since Tan Fa captured her. Che Ruman had long died and turned into ashes that flew to God knows where. Arbor muttered in her heart. She originally wanted to answer Qi Xuanxuan's question, but when she landed on the stage, she suddenly paused. She sat there in a daze for a moment before abruptly jumping up from her stool and forcefully rubbing her eyes. Her movement of getting up was so big that it immediately affected the attention of everyone around her. Miss Chow forcefully rubbed her large eyes and stared fixedly into the distance. On the stage, those 6 nimble figures flew up and arranged the 6 long swords in their hands into a sword formation. They were filled with exploding spiritual light as they eerily swept towards the opposing team. Arbor's heart was greatly shaken. Impossible. She shook her head as she muttered to herself. Just as her small hand was about to stretch out to wipe her eyes again, Prince Mo had already stood up and grabbed her soft hand. He gazed at the stage with narrowed eyes and said softly, Jojo, it's your senior sister Yugui and the others. Arbor abruptly turned her head and dazedly stared at him for a while before turning back to stare at the stage. She shook her head. Impossible. Big liar. She buried their bodies with her own hands. Wasn't there not a single survivor of the Holy Water sect's 800 people? Everyone said that the Holy Water sect had been annihilated, and everyone looked at her alone with sympathetic gazes. Master died, 2nd Ant Master and 3rd Ant Master both died. All of the senior sisters were dead, weren't they? Mo Lian put her arm around her shoulders and said softly, let's just ask and we'll know. Look, your 6 senior sisters are all here. Perhaps the Holy Water sect still has more than just the 6 of them. Miss Chow's eyes were filled with a layer of mist. She turned her little face to look at him, shook her head vigorously, and said pitifully, when I went up on stage to draw lots in the first round, they already saw me. If it's my senior sister, why didn't she come to find me? Liar. It's definitely not my senior sister. Qi Xianxian and the others did not know what was going on, but they were able to understand a thing or two. Then, he turned his head to look at the 2 teams fighting in the arena. He looked at them thoughtfully for a while. Mo Lian's heart immediately ached when she saw her suffering. She nodded and said, okay. They're not your senior sisters. Let's ignore them. Liar. Arbor immediately retorted. The tears in his eyes were about to fall, and there was a hint of anger on his little face. She clearly looks exactly like senior sister Yugue. Prince Emo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When his baby decided to be unreasonable, she was even more unreasonable than anyone else. Jojo. He softly whispered into her ear and used a handkerchief to wipe her sweaty palms. Let's ask them clearly later, okay? Perhaps we left early in the last round, so they couldn't find us even if they wanted to. We have the sex messenger talisman. Chapter 1962. Amused, Prince Emo pulled the little fellow to sit down and nodded. Then why don't you take it out for us to see? Arbor was momentarily dumbstruck. Her sex transmission talisman. Miss Chiao scratched the back of her head and secretly used her spiritual sense to push open the door to her inner world. After rummaging through her inner world, she finally found her sex transmission talisman in a nook and cranny. Senior sister sent me a message. The little fellow's eyes brightened as she raised the sex transmission talisman in her hand. There was a small line of words left on the talisman. Jojo, reply quickly when you see this. She left a message, Yugue. Yes, ever since she buried her martial aunt and senior sister's corpses, she had thrown the sex transmission talisman in a corner of her inner world and never looked through it again. Jojo. Qi Xian leaned over and looked at her. You found your companions. Arbor nodded at her. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal said with a grin, an old friend from a foreign country is here. Shouldn't you bring out some good wine and let's drink until we're drunk? Foodie. Everyone cursed in unison, but when they heard the word food, their dog eyes lit up as they looked at Arbor. Arbor subconsciously pursed her lips, caressing the sex transmission talisman in her hand. Her gaze shifted to the arena again, only to see that the battle between the two sides had already reached its climax. Ping Guang released a circle of water spirit, trapping little cannon Fong Su in a water prison. Fong Su's cultivation was about the same as Ping Guang's, at the initial stage of level 14. After fighting for so long, she was a little tired. She was a little exhausted and couldn't break free of the water prison. However, senior sister Yugue and the rest were handling the remaining 5 people with ease. The battle would end soon, and victory should belong to senior sister's side. Little Cannon Fong Su was an impatient person. Seeing that her mystic energy was insufficient and she was trapped in the water prison, she took out the spirit-restoring medicinal liquid that the instructor had given her and gulped it down. If the spirit-restoring medicinal liquid could restore 1/10 of one's spirit energy, then it could at least restore 1/5 of one's mystic energy. When the time came, she would definitely be able to break free. Bound. Ah. It hurts. Pain. It hurts. Fong Su suddenly clutched his stomach with both hands, cold sweat rolling down his forehead. He only felt that when that bottle of spirit-returning medicinal liquid entered his stomach, it was as if a raging fire had ignited in his stomach, boiling and burning. Bam! Fong Su tumbled to the ground. When Yugue and the others saw this, they couldn't help but call out, "Junior sister," in a fluster. How could they still be in the mood to fight? They quickly rushed forward to check on Fong Su's condition. Peng Guang. Stop. Seeing that his team member wanted to take advantage of the situation to attack Yugue and the others, the Moonlight Academy team leader couldn't help but shout to stop him. Peng Guang resentfully withdrew his hand and stood behind the captain. Junior sister, what's wrong? Senior sister, senior sister, senior sister. Fong Su clutched her stomach, her entire body emitting hot steam. Yugue reached out to touch Fong Su's forehead and was immediately shocked. Fong Su's entire body felt as if she had fallen into a furnace. It was terrifyingly hot. There's a doctor in the arena, quickly take Junior Sister to see him. On the side, Ming Xia hurriedly crouched down and carried Fong Su on her back. The 6 people directly left the Moonlight Academy team behind and rushed down the stage without looking back. The moment they rushed down the stage, they saw a slender figure suddenly appear in front of them like lightning. Yu Gui and the others raised their heads, and in an instant, their eyes all turned red. 8 watch ends. Chapter 1963. Quickly move her over there and lay her flat. Arbor didn't have time to reminisce with them as he pointed to an empty passageway. They naturally couldn't block the entrance to the stage, so as to avoid affecting other people going up to the stage. After moving Fong Su to the side, Arbor immediately opened his spiritual eye. After carefully taking Fong Su's pulse, Arbor used his spiritual eye to carefully inspect Fong Su's body. He saw that nearly 3/4 of her mystic energy had been used up, leaving only a portion. And this portion of mystic energy was strangely wrapped in a layer of black fluid. A type of heat poison. Not only could it make the poisoned person feel as if their internal organs were burning, if the dosage was large enough, it could even damage a person's normal mystic meridians. Once the mystic meridians were damaged, if there was no way to repair or reconstruct them, then the person's mystic cultivation path would be considered to have come to an end. Yu Gui and the rest surrounded the little fellow, but they didn't dare to interrupt and disturb her diagnosis and treatment. Arbor had just taken out his needle bag when he saw a middle-aged man with a twisted expression charge forward in a rage. He grabbed Yu Gui and the rest and roared furiously, "Yu Gui! Is this how you lead the team? You clearly could have won the competition just now. But you all ran off the stage without permission before the competition ended. Where is the Academy's honor?" Ming Xia picked up an empty bottle of spirit liquid and threw it heavily in front of that instructor. With a pop sound, the bottle exploded at the instructor's feet. "What kind of instructor are you? You actually gave poison to a student. Now that you've eaten someone's life, are you happy?" Something like this happening in the seating area naturally attracted the gazes of many people from the other academies. Everyone didn't even pay attention to the intense competition as they all looked with interest at the students and instructors quarreling in Heavenly Bestowing Academy. The instructor actually added poison to the medicinal liquid that the students took. What kind of exciting news was this? The middle-aged instructor's face was naturally flushed red, almost unable to maintain his composure. He stared at Ming Xia and angrily reprimanded, "What nonsense are you spouting? Don't vent your anger on your own instructor just because you lost the competition. Whether I'm venting my anger or not, you know better than anyone else." Chen Hanzi, who was at the side, said with a cold expression, "Everyone, take out the potions that the instructor gave us." Other than Fong Su, who drank it all in one gulp, the rest of them didn't touch the liquid on their bodies. At this time, hearing Chen Hanzi's words, the rest of the people took out the medicinal liquid from their pockets and placed it beside Arbor. Arbor swept his eyes over them and casually picked up a bottle. He pulled out the cork and fanned the mouth of the bottle with his hand, sniffing it. His voice was flat as he said, "1 bottle of trash spirit-restoring elixir." He could only recover 1/10 of his spiritual energy each time. The recovery effect was extremely poor. The scarlet fire poison has been added to it. The dosage is moderate and will not destroy the spirit meridians in the body. However, it will make the user feel as if they are in a fiery purgatory, causing unbearable pain. Everyone was speechless. Why did he feel that the little girl's indifferent tone sounded like she was mocking him? Was it an illusion? And a bottle of trashy spirit-restoring potion, was there anyone who evaluated medicinal liquids like that? It was already extremely difficult for pill refiners to concoct this kind of spirit-restoring elixir. On the market, this kind of spirit-restoring elixir wasn't something that you could buy just because you had money. Most of it was concocted by pill refiners nurtured by various aristocratic families according to precious recipes. The little girl's disdain for this bottle of spirit-restoring elixir made people feel very subtle. Chapter 1964. It was as if she was saying that the #1 Heavenly Bestow Academy in Poland Prefecture could only produce this kind of trashy medicinal liquid. How embarrassing. The middle-aged tutor's face was instantly covered in a layer of soot. It was so dark that it was difficult to distinguish the color. The little girl's words were definitely infuriating. That evaluation of the spirit-restoring elixir solution made the 3 instructors of the Heavenly Bestow Academy feel like they had lost all face. You. What are you talking about? Although the little girl looked young, she was able to analyze the medicine in a clear and logical manner. The 3 tutors felt guilty for no reason. Be bastard. How could there be such a young alchemist? She must be lying to them. Your method of poisoning is extremely clumsy. The little girl added another evaluation. Little Fatty and the others who were watching the commotion couldn't help but laugh when they heard this. My God, seeing their family's Jojo's small face and expressionless poisonous tongue lecturing people, it really was a kind of visual enjoyment, ha ha ha. The 3 Heavenly Bestow Academy tutors were probably so angry that their lungs were about to explode. Hearing this, one of them said angrily, "Little girl, don't speak nonsense when you can eat whatever you want. How can you prove that your judgment is correct? This poison isn't something you can casually scold people with just your words. I've been practicing medicine for decades, how could I lie to you?" The little fellow opened her mouth and said this. Then, she also felt that something was wrong. The corners of Yugue, Chinhanzi and the others' eyes twitched. They maintained a straight face and didn't say anything, but in reality, they were on the verge of breaking down. Little junior sister, even if you were to count the time you practiced medicine in your mother's womb, at most, you could only have practiced for 16 years. This bullshit of a few decades was really too exaggerated. Arbor was expressionless as she continued to use her spiritual eye to check the condition of Fong Su's body. While she was chatting with the Heavenly Bestow Academy tutors, she didn't forget to insert the needles in her hand. In this short period of time, the poison in Fong Su's body was almost completely removed. Dr. Luo is here. Make way, make way. The crowd opened up a path for a trembling old man who was not very agile to walk forward. There was naturally a big difference between a doctor and an alchemist. Other things aside, refining pills wasn't something any doctor could do. This old doctor was proficient in the art of detoxification, so it was normal for him to be dragged over. Arbor's acupuncture was at a crucial point, so the old doctor did not disturb her. He just watched from the side for a while and nodded repeatedly. Your acupuncture technique is exquisite. I wonder who your teacher is. Arbor put away the needles and looked up at the old doctor. He said expressionlessly, "My master is naturally a hidden expert. I can't reveal his name to you." Everyone. They really wanted to hit this lousy child. Usually, they would just say that their master did not allow them to reveal their name. Then, others would naturally understand that their master was an expert and would be too embarrassed to ask further. Who would directly say that their master was an expert? How immodest. The old physician smiled helplessly. He wasn't angry and walked up from the side. He first checked on Fong Su, who was lying on the ground with his eyes closed. He nodded and said, "He's fine now." Then, he looked at the medicine bottle on the ground and confirmed that what Arbor said was true. This kind of red fire poison isn't hard to detoxify. It's just that it will cause a lot of damage to the human body in a short period of time, the old doctor explained. It's very painful. However, the young doctor's acupuncture technique is extraordinary. The treatment is very good. Chapter 1965. I believe that this lady will wake up very soon, the old doctor said with a smile. Yugue thanked him and turned to look at the three teachers with ugly expressions. She asked coldly, Teacher Zhang, did you all hear that? You tell me how to solve this matter. The middle-aged teacher glanced at Yugue guiltily. What are you saying? Would a teacher poison his own student? The truth is right there. I don't know what's there to quibble about. Yugue interrupted his quibbling and looked straight at him. Teacher Zhang flew into a rage out of humiliation and turned to glare at the younger teacher beside him. Teacher Sun, you explain to them. The elixir has always been with you. How could it be poisonous? Teacher Sun said indifferently, how would I know? These elixirs were all distributed by the academy. Whoosh, paw. A dictum talisman flew to Teacher Sun's body and split open. The talisman energy drilled into Instructor Sun's body, causing his entire body to stiffen. In a split second, he poured out everything he knew. It was Miss Shen who instructed me to do this. It was Shen Shinran. She gave me 10,000 spirit coins and a mystic level spirit technique. I was ordered by her. That's why I put the fire red poison in Yugue's medicine bottle. The truth was revealed in a second. Everyone was dumbfounded. Shen Shinran was so angry that her face was distorted. She stood up from her seat, pointed at Instructor Sun and screamed, Don't you dare slander me. When did I ask you to do such a thing? Ayaya, Teacher Sun, Teacher Zhang was right. You can eat whatever you want, but you can't speak whatever you want. Zhuang Meng covered her mouth and laughed. Shen Shinran's face was filled with anger. She turned to glare at Zhuang Meng. Don't cause trouble. After Instructor Sun finished speaking, it was as if he was stuck. He paused and looked around in confusion for a while. His brain seemed to have short-circuited. What did he say just now? Teacher Sun looked at Shen Shinran's angry gaze and couldn't help but be stunned. Shen Shinran, what else do you have to say? Yugue and the others glared at him and called out spirit swords from their conscious, pointing them in Shen Shinran's direction. What do you want? Teacher Zhang's eyes flashed with anger as he glared at the few of them and said, You are all from the same academy. Now, because of a small misunderstanding, you want to draw your swords against each other. Aren't you worried about being expelled from the academy? Shen Shinran sneered as she looked at them. She pointed at Arbor and said, I don't know what that little witch did to make Instructor Sun lose his composure. Just based on Instructor Sun's one-sided statement, you guys won't be able to identify me as the culprit. Just now, during the competition, you have already caused your own academy to lose because of a single mistake. And now, he was pointing his sword at his companion. Do you really think that your talents are so good that the academy can disregard the past and tolerate you? The little girl suddenly said angrily, She called me a little witch. Peony. Prince Mo calmly ordered. The peony fairy immediately flew forward and chuckled enchantingly. Without any explanation, she slapped Shen Shinran's cheeks twice. After the two crisp slaps, the peony fairy had a pitiful expression and said sweetly, why do women have to make things difficult for other women? Chapter 1966. Looking at the bright red handprints on Shen Shinran's left and right cheeks, everyone's gaze fell on the little girl and they all looked at her. In this kind of serious and tense atmosphere, they actually had an inexplicable urge to laugh. Why did the little girl only pay attention to others calling her a witch? Wasn't this point of focus a bit mysterious? Shen Shinran had never been insulted like this since she was young. She was so angry that every strand of hair on her body was trembling. Slave Eagle! She screamed. The attendant who was originally following behind her immediately stepped forward and aggressively reached out his claws towards Arbor. "You're looking for death." Prince Mo's eyes turned cold. Yugue and the rest had already blocked Slave Eagle's figure with their swords. They raised their legs and kicked him back a few steps. Slave Eagle wanted to make another move, but Peony Fairy moved her finger and a lightning spirit fell on Slave Eagle's head with a "pachi" sound, directly striking him and making him fall to the ground with a thud. "Ayaya, I told you not to fight. Why can't you talk nicely?" Peony Fairy stroked the hair on her temples and shook her head. "Bullying you little kids doesn't give me any sense of accomplishment." Shinran was so angry that her whole body was trembling. She pointed at Yugue and the rest and turned to Teacher Zhang. "Teacher, these people are extremely arrogant. First, they slandered me for instigating Teacher's son to poison, then they protected an outsider against their own classmates. They should be expelled from the academy immediately." Teacher Zhang's mouth turned down slightly. He stared at Yugue with a serious face and said, "Apologize to Miss Shin. Do you really not want to stay in the academy any longer? There's no point in staying in a lousy academy with a degenerate teacher like you." Zhou Danjin mocked from the side. Immediately, many people from other academies agreed and started to jeer. No one was blind. The truth was in front of everyone. This mission instigated Teacher Sun to poison. How could she not be punished? This Teacher Zhang was still protecting her. It was really disgusting. All of you. Shinran felt like she was being targeted by the whole world. She stomped her feet in anger. "Teacher, chase them out." Teacher Zhang nodded with a cold face. "Yugue. There's no need for you to chase us away. We'll leave on our own accord." Yugue raised her hand and stopped Instructor Zhang from speaking. Instructor Zhang suddenly felt as if he had punched into soft cotton. His face was livid with anger. All of a sudden, hit him. The little girl threw a rotten egg at Instructor Zhang's face. Qi Xianxian and the rest of the onlookers immediately rushed forward as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They showered Teacher Zhang with punches. Hearing the three mentors being beaten up by the crowd, the other students in the seating area who didn't like them also came up to give them a few punches. It wasn't until the person in charge of the arena hurriedly brought people over and separated the two sides that they saw the three Heavenly Bestow Academy instructors beaten black and blue. Teacher Zhang's finger trembled as he pointed at Arbor. He was so angry that he couldn't even speak. If it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't use spiritual power to attack in the seating area, would he have been beaten up so badly? Arbor pretended not to see him. He threw those scum to Qi Xianxian and the rest to deal with and ran to Senior Yugue's side. Fong Su had just woken up and saw her at a glance. Chapter 1967. 413 Little Pao was taken aback. Then, a rare gentle smile blossomed on her face as she slowly opened her arms. "Little junior sister, aren't you going to give senior sister a hug?" Miss Chow threw herself into her arms and felt herself being tightly hugged. She almost couldn't hold back her tears. She thought that her tears had long dried up on the day the Holy Water sect was destroyed. But it turned out that they hadn't. "Liar." The little girl grumbled softly, "I thought you were all dead." Only the heavens knew how tragic her emotions were when she transferred everyone's corpses to Peach Garden Slope that day. She thought that everyone in the sect had been sacrificed. Only today did she realize that they weren't. This feeling of having a huge pie drop down from the sky was a mixture of joy and sorrow. She felt like she was still in a dream even now. "Big liar," Miss Chow muttered. He actually left Jojo alone in the lower star domain while all of them ran over to the middle 6 prefectures? It's a long story. We'll tell you in detail later. Yugue lovingly patted the little fellow's head. You've suffered these past few years. Little junior sister, it's really great to see you. Chenhanzi and the rest's eyes glistened with tears as they spoke in choked voices. Yugue nodded with reddened eyes. Seeing that the others were sizing them up, she said softly, "Let's go. We'll talk after we leave this place." The little fellow raised her furry head and nodded. Everyone helped Fang Su up and held Xiao Mu's small hand as they walked towards the door. Shen Xinran's angry roar rang out from the table. Yugue, Lu Ling, Chenhanzi, you will regret today's decision. In the 6 prefectures continent, itinerant cultivators without an academy or clan's protection would face many problems, especially when these people were all young and beautiful girls. They really wouldn't turn back until they hit a wall. Sooner or later, they would find out that without Hershan clan's protection, they would struggle to advance in the entire Poland prefecture. Shen Xinran coldly watched them leave without looking back. She clenched her fists with a gloomy expression. There will be a time when you'll be begging me. Who's that woman with a contorted face? Miss Chow asked curiously. A strange woman. Chenhanzi said, she has always thought that she is the eldest young miss of the Shen family of Poland Manor. She thinks that she is superior and wants to take us into her family as her servants. If we don't pay attention to her, she'll twist on her own, Ming Xia said unhappily. Don't pay attention to her. She's so full of herself. Junior sister, when did you come to the 6 prefectures continent? Yugue held the child's hand tightly and pulled her forward. I've been here for a long time. The little girl raised her head and glanced at them. Student Xiao. Arbor looked back and saw her companions not far away, smiling and waving at her. Remember to come back early later. Yes, meeting an old friend in a foreign land. The little fatty chuckled and said, I think what the celestial master said is right. It's worth celebrating. Arbor grinned and waved his little paw at Mo Lian, then turned around and left with his senior sisters. Mada rubbed his eyes. I don't know if my eyes are playing tricks on me, but I think I saw Jojo smile just now. Hee, I think my eyes are playing tricks on me as well. That's right. Little fatty shook his head. Just now, Jojo smiled at them, right? Chapter 1968. 4:14 to be precise, Jojo tugged at the corner of her mouth, revealing an expression that looked like she wanted to laugh, but didn't. What a novel feeling. Qi Xianxian couldn't resist asking, Jojo calls them senior sisters. In that case, did Jojo run into people from her sect? She previously thought that Jojo had run into the group of companions she wanted to wait for at Shuntian Prefecture's entrance, but it turned out that wasn't the case. MHM, I didn't expect the little stoic to have so many beautiful senior sisters. Wuji Dao chuckled mischievously while rubbing his chin. Ha! Little Taisui threw him a cold glance. Looks like someone is done for. Wuji Dao was speechless. How am I done for? Think about it. Little Taisui said airily, Jojo values her senior sisters so much. If she knew that you were planning to attack other people, how would she treat you? When Wuji Dao recalled the little fellow's methods, he seemed to catch Boss shooting him a threatening glance from the corner of his eye. He quickly shut his mouth and didn't dare to say anything else. He was someone who knew how to adapt to circumstances. Between his life and women, he would still choose his life. On the other side, Arbor followed her senior sisters back to their inn. As soon as she closed the door, everyone couldn't resist running up to Arbor and patting her head in passing. Little junior sister, have you been well on Seacone Planet these past few years? Have you suffered a lot? Look, you've lost a lot of weight. Arbor didn't have time to interject when she heard them asking her questions at once. Beside her, Yugue couldn't resist laughing and saying, with the crown prince of Mo Kingdom around, I think little junior sister can't endure any grievances. Arbor nodded her small head, indicating that she didn't suffer any grievances. Fong Su sat at the table and looked up at Arbor. She said with a smile, don't talk at once. Pick the main points and tell little junior sister about them first. There's still plenty of time in the future, so we can talk about those trivial matters later. Yugue nodded and said, that's right. Senior sister, let's bring little junior sister back. Mingxia said, if second martial uncle knows that junior sister is here, he will definitely be overjoyed. Arbor's eyes lit up. 2. Second martial uncle. Yugue nodded. Master is fine. Master and Auntie E led us and found a house in Poland Mansion to stay for the time being. Little junior sister, you still have to continue competing. It won't take much time. When you're done, we'll... Senior sister. Fong Su didn't quite agree. What kind of competition is that? Why do you still care about it? It's more important for us to return to the sect and see Master. If Master knew that little junior sister is coming, he would definitely go crazy with joy. Arbor nodded. Yugue couldn't help but glare at her with a smile. She grabbed Arbor's little hand and said, don't worry about your senior sister, she's impatient. You're representing your academy, so you can't just give up halfway. Furthermore, if he won, he could go to Brinset Island to cultivate in the spirit realm. This is a rare opportunity. Don't miss it. Arbor thought for a moment and then nodded. The matter of going to spirit realm was related to whether or not Little Tree could recover. They couldn't give up so easily. We can't escape from that house in Poland Mansion either. When the competition is over, before we go to Brinset Island, I will definitely take you there. Okay. Everyone smiled at each other. Although they hadn't seen each other for many years, they still felt that the connection between them was so close. Some words didn't need to be said. They understood everything as they looked at each other. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.